The first light of dawn touches the Giza plateau with fingers of gold, casting long shadows across sand that has witnessed 5 millennia of human wonder. In this moment between night and day, when the desert holds its breath, 3 massive monuments emerge from the darkness, like sleeping giants awakening to greet the sun. The Great Pyramid rises 481 feet into the Egyptian sky. Its limestone blocks each weighing as much as a modern automobile, fitted together with precision that would challenge today as construction crews. Imagine yourself standing at the base of this colossal structure, your hand pressed against stone that has weathered empires rising and falling. The blocks beneath your palm are warm from yesterday's heat, yet somehow they seem to pulse with something deeper, an energy that transcends mere thermal retention. These are not simply piles of carved rock arranged by ancient ambition. They are monuments that have puzzled archaeologists, engineers, and dreamers for generations. The mainstream narrative speaks with confident authority. These are tombs, eternal resting places for god-kings who ruled the Nile Valley when the world was young. Khufu, Kaffa, and Menkaure pharaohs, whose names echo through history books. Their monuments testament to absolute power and the human desire for immortality. According to Orthodox archaeology, armies of workers hauled limestone from quarries, shaped granite in distant Aswan, and spent decades constructing these burial chambers for rulers who believed their bodies must be preserved for journey into the afterlife. Yet, as the sun climbs higher, illuminating every perfectly aligned edge and mathematically precise angle, whispers of alternative possibility drift across the desert wind. What if these monuments once served a purpose far different from anything we've imagined? What if the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge we've forgotten understanding of forces that could make stone itself thrum with energy? The morning light reveals details that challenge comfortable assumptions. The Great Pyramid's base covers 13 acres, yet its corners align with cardinal directions to within 1/15 of a degree. Its height relates to its base circumference in the same ratio as a circle Isa's circumference, the mathematical constant pi, encoded in stone thousands of years before Greek mathematicians gave it a name. These are not the casual achievements of tomb builders focused solely on honoring the dead. As shadows shift and the desert heat begins its daily ascent, one cannot help but wonder, might these sleeping giants once have awakened each dawn, not just to sunlight, but to purposes we've lost to time? The stones stand silent now, but perhaps they remember when they hummed with frequencies that resonated through bedrock, when they channeled forces that lit temples and powered a civilization whose technological sophistication we are only beginning to glimpse. The pyramids wait, patient as they have always been, holding their secrets in chambers that have known darkness for millennia. Today, they appear as monuments to death, but what if they were once monuments to life itself, to energy, power, and human mastery over forces we've forgotten how to harness? Our conventional understanding of the pyramids as tombs rests on several key assumptions. First, the discovery of human remains within the structures themselves. Second, evidence of funerary practices common in ancient Egypt, such as the presence of sarcophagi or offerings. And third, written records or artwork depicting the burial chambers and their intended purpose. While none of these elements can definitively prove the pyramids served as burial grounds, their collective weight of evidence makes it difficult to entertain alternative theories. Or does it? The discovery of mummified remains inside the Great Pyramid is often cited as irrefutable proof of its purpose as a tomb. However, recent investigations using non-invasive techniques like infrared scanning have revealed inconsistencies in the quantity and quality of human remains found within the monument. Some scans indicate the possible presence of voids or chambers not accounted for in official excavations. Could there be hidden areas intentionally left unexcavated to protect the site from looters or preserve its sanctity? Or do they suggest an entirely different purpose for the pyramid's design? This brings us to the second line of evidence: funerary customs and iconography. While the presence of sarcophagi or grave goods would strongly support the theory that the pyramids were tombs. Their absence does not disprove it. Ancient Egyptians held deeply ingrained beliefs about the sacredness of the burial process that may not have included the preservation of physical remains. Furthermore, any traces of funerary rituals could have been erased or obscured due to centuries of looting or natural erosion. Finally, written records depicting the pyramid's construction and use are often interpreted through the lens of modern scholarship, which tends to reinforce preconceived notions about their function. Are there passages in ancient texts that, if read literally, cast doubt on the traditional narrative? Have later accounts been influenced more by popular mythology than empirical evidence? As researchers continue to analyze newly discovered artifacts and re-examine existing evidence, our understanding of ancient Egyptian culture evolves. Recent discoveries have shed new light on previously unexamined aspects of life in the Nile Valley, challenging long-held assumptions about daily customs, religious beliefs, and even the timeline of cultural development. For example, the unearthing of previously inaccessible tombs has revealed more egalitarian burial practices among the general populace, suggesting that while pharaohs may have sought elaborate eternal resting places, common folk had simpler, less costly rituals performed. This challenges the notion that pyramid building was solely motivated by the desire for grand tombs for the elite few. Other discoveries, such as inscriptions on household items or personal belongings, have illuminated the prevalence of literacy among everyday citizens. This contradicts the long-held belief that writing was restricted to a small class of scribes and priests. Perhaps most significantly, ongoing excavations have uncovered new architectural complexes, temples, and workshops that provide glimpses into the daily life and labor force behind monumental projects like the pyramids. This evidence paints a richer, more nuanced picture of ancient Egyptian society, one that moves beyond the traditional narrative of pharaohs and priests dominating an illiterate populace. By uncovering new artifacts and re-examining old ones in light of recent findings, scholars are beginning to piece together a more complete and accurate representation of life in ancient Egypt. This evolving understanding has important implications for our interpretation of the pyramids themselves. As we learn more about the values, beliefs, and daily lives of ancient Egyptians, we can gain new insights into why and how these monumental structures were built and what purpose they served. It also raises critical questions about the nature of evidence and how our interpretations of the past are often colored by our own biases and assumptions. The discovery of new artifacts, the re-examination of old ones in light of current research, and the continuous efforts of archaeologists and historians to peel back the layers of time all contribute to our evolving understanding of ancient Egypt. Through their work, the pyramids continue to reveal their secrets, inviting us to reconsider what we thought we knew and marvel at the ingenuity and complexity of one of humanity's oldest and greatest civilizations. Each block of limestone or granite used in the construction of the pyramids represents a significant investment of resources. Quarrying, transporting, and lifting these massive stones required a tremendous amount of manpower, organization, and advanced engineering knowledge. Despite their seemingly colossal scale, recent studies suggest the construction of the pyramids may have taken less time than previously thought, possibly being completed within a few decades rather than the centuries previously believed. This challenges the notion that the effort involved in pyramid building would have been sustained over such a long period. Furthermore, evidence suggests that the workforce responsible for constructing the pyramids consisted primarily of skilled laborers, not slaves or prisoners as commonly depicted in popular imagination. These workers likely lived in organized camps near the construction sites with provisions supplied by the state. Their efforts were not isolated acts of brute strength, but rather a carefully planned and executed undertaking guided by sophisticated mathematics and engineering principles. Consider the sheer scale of the Great Pyramid, the largest of the three structures on the Giza Plateau. Standing at nearly 481 feet tall and covering 13 acres at its base. It's made up of an estimated 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing, on average, 2 tons. The precision with which these blocks were cut, transported, and lifted into place is truly remarkable. The accuracy of the pyramid's alignment with true north is particularly impressive, with each corner differing by no more than 1/15 of a degree. Such precision required sophisticated surveying equipment and an understanding of complex mathematical concepts like pi, which the ancient Egyptians likely knew to several decimal places. The construction of the pyramids was not just a testament to the ancient Egyptians' ambition and ingenuity, but also to their ability to organize and manage large-scale projects with efficiency and accuracy. These structures stood as symbols of order and control in a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. But they also represented a profound human desire to understand and interact with the natural world. The pyramids' alignment with cardinal directions and their symbolic representation of celestial bodies, like the Big Dipper constellation, reflect the ancient Egyptians' deep connection to the cosmos. They saw the world as a harmonious and interconnected whole, and their monumental building projects were an attempt to capture and embody that unity. The pyramids' enduring legacy is a testament to the power of human imagination and the desire to leave a lasting impact on the world. These structures have captivated the human mind for millennia, inspiring awe, wonder, and endless speculation. Whether they were tombs, temples, or astronomical observatories, the pyramids remain an iconic symbol of human achievement and our enduring fascination with the past. The idea that the pyramids once served as power plants, generating energy to illuminate the Great Temple complex, is both intriguing and heretical. It challenges everything we've been taught about ancient Egyptian culture and the capabilities of our ancestors. The concept of energy generation through unknown technologies also strays from the conventional historical narrative that depicts ancient societies as primitive and technologically limited. Proponents of this theory argue that certain features of the pyramids, such as their precise alignment, internal chambers, and granite construction, are better explained by their use as energy generators rather than tombs. However, mainstream archaeologists reject this idea, citing a lack of physical evidence for advanced technology or energy production within the pyramids. They argue that the available evidence, including textual records, archaeological findings, and artistic depictions, overwhelmingly supports the traditional view of the pyramids as tombs for pharaohs. Despite this debate, the idea that the pyramids once served as power plants continues to capture the public imagination and inspire further investigation. The potential discovery of evidence for advanced ancient technologies would have profound implications for our understanding of human history and the development of civilization. It could revolutionize the way we think about the past and challenge long-held beliefs about the capabilities of ancient societies. The pyramids' enduring mystery and the ongoing quest to uncover their secrets continue to captivate us. Whether they were power plants, tombs, or something else entirely, these ancient structures stand as a reminder of the boundless curiosity and ingenuity of the human spirit. The true purpose of the pyramids may lie dormant within their chambers, waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps the answers to these enduring mysteries are buried deep within the earth beneath the sands of time. But one thing is certain: the legacy of the pyramids will continue to inspire wonder and speculation for generations to come. As the desert morning gives way to the heat of approaching noon, the orthodox tale of these monuments unfolds with the weight of accepted history. According to Egyptologists, whose careers have been built upon decades of careful scholarship, the Great Pyramid stands as the ultimate expression of 4th dynasty power. Tomb conceived by Pharaoh Khufu around 2580 BCE, when Egypt commanded resources and labor on a scale that dwarfed any previous civilization. The accepted narrative paints a vivid picture: tens of thousands of workers, organized into crews with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, hauling massive blocks up ramps that spiraled around the growing monument. Herodotus, the Greek historian who visited Egypt in the 5th century BCE, claimed that 100,000 men labored for 20 years to complete Khufu's eternal resting place. Modern estimates suggest more modest numbers, perhaps 20,000 workers, during peak construction seasons, but the story remains fundamentally the same. This was a tomb, pure and simple, designed to protect the pharaoh's mummified body and treasure for eternity. Archaeological evidence supports much of this conventional wisdom. Nearby mastaba tombs house nobles and administrators who served these pharaohs. Hieroglyphic inscriptions in adjacent pyramids detail the journey of the royal soul through the underworld. Funerary texts describe elaborate rituals meant to ensure the pharaoh's successful transformation into a god among the stars. The pyramid complex at Giza includes smaller pyramids for queens, mortuary temples where priests performed daily rituals for the deceased kings, and causeways connecting these sacred structures to valley temples where mummification may have occurred. Yet even as this orthodox story solidifies under the weight of scholarly consensus, troubling questions emerge like heat mirages shimmering above desert stones. If the Great Pyramid was indeed Khufu's tomb, where is Khufu? No mummy has ever been found within its chambers. No treasure has been recovered from its depths. The red granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber sits empty, its lid nowhere to be found, as though it was never intended to hold a body at all. More puzzling still, the Great Pyramid contains no hieroglyphs, no religious texts to guide the pharaoh's soul. Number inscriptions identifying its occupant, no artwork depicting the afterlife journey that supposedly justified its construction. Every other Egyptian tomb of significance blazes with hieroglyphic narratives, paintings that transform stone walls into windows onto the realm of the gods. The Great Pyramid's chambers stand bare, their granite walls polished to mirror smoothness, but devoid of the religious imagery that defined Egyptian burial practices. Consider also the mathematical precision embedded in the structure ratios and measurements that encode advanced knowledge of Earth's dimensions, astronomical cycles, and geometric relationships. Would tomb builders have concerned themselves with such cosmic calculations? The pyramid's base perimeter, when divided by its height, yields pi to several decimal places. Its dimensions encode the length of the solar year, the diameter of Earth, even the speed of light when expressed in certain units of measurement. These are not the casual achievements of architects focused solely on creating an impressive burial chamber. As afternoon shadows begin their slow march across the plateau, the official story maintains its academic respectability, supported by university departments and museum exhibitions worldwide. But the empty chambers whisper different possibilities, and the mathematical precision of every angle suggests purposes beyond mere burial purposes that the next phase of our investigation must explore. While the afternoon sun beats down upon the plateau with relentless intensity, the interior of the Great Pyramid remains cool and constant, its chambers maintaining temperatures that vary little throughout the day or across seasons. These internal spaces, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the mysterious subterranean chamber, cut deep into bedrock hold secrets that conventional archaeology struggles to explain. Enter the king's chamber, and you step into a space that defies every expectation of what an ancient tomb should contain. The room measures precisely 34 feet long, 17 feet wide, and 19 feet high, dimensions that encode mathematical relationships found throughout the structure. Red granite blocks, quarried 500 miles south in Aswan and transported with extraordinary effort up the Nile, form walls polished to an almost mirror finish. The craftsmanship surpasses anything achieved in subsequent Egyptian construction, as though the builders possessed techniques that were lost along with their civilization. At the chamber's western end sits the famous red granite sarcophagus, if indeed it is a sarcophagus. This rectangular container shows no lid, no evidence of having been sealed, no residue of mummification materials. Its internal dimensions correspond to no standard Egyptian burial practices. Most puzzling of all, it resonates when struck, producing a deep, penetrating note that seems to emerge not just from the granite itself, but from the chamber's very walls. Modern acoustic analysis reveals that this chamber resonates at 110 Hz, a frequency that corresponds to infrasound, below the range of human hearing, but capable of affecting human consciousness in subtle yet measurable ways. Descend to the Queen's Chamber, and the mysteries deepen. Despite its name assigned by early Arab explorers, who assumed it must have housed a female royal, this chamber shows no evidence of ever serving burial purposes. Its walls remain unfinished, as though construction was abandoned midway through some process entirely different from tomb preparation. Most intriguingly, the chamber contains two small shafts that angle upward through the pyramid's mass, leading nowhere that archaeologists can determine. These shafts are too small for human passage, too precisely angled to serve ventilation, and too deliberately constructed to be merely symbolic. Recent robotic exploration of these shafts has revealed metal objects embedded in what appears to be a door or barrier deep within the pyramid's structure. These metal fragments, copper handles, or electrical components, depending on one's interpretation, suggest technology far more sophisticated than anything the conventional timeline attributes to ancient Egypt. Why would tomb builders install copper fittings in shafts leading to unknown destinations within their pharaoh's eternal resting place? The subterranean chamber, carved directly into the bedrock beneath the pyramid, presents perhaps the greatest puzzle of all. This rough-hewn space connects to the pyramid through a descending passage that angles down through the structure's core with surveyor-precise accuracy. Unlike the polished granite chambers above, this space appears deliberately unfinished, its floor uneven and its walls bearing tool marks that suggest sudden abandonment. A horizontal shaft leads from this chamber into darkness, extending an unknown distance beneath the plateau. Modern ground-penetrating radar has detected what appear to be water channels beneath the Giza complex, ancient hydraulic systems that could have carried Nile water directly beneath the monuments. If water indeed flowed through these subterranean passages, it would transform our understanding of the pyramid's potential function entirely. Flowing water generates electrical charge through hydroelectric effects, the same principle that creates lightning during thunderstorms. Combined with the pyramid's granite and limestone, construction materials with vastly different electrical properties, these water channels could have turned the entire structure into a massive electrical generator. As the desert afternoon wanes and shadows lengthen across the plateau, the empty chambers continue their silent testimony. No pharaoh's body has ever been found here. No treasure has rewarded archaeological excavation. No hieroglyphs explain the purpose of passages that lead to nowhere conventional archaeology can explain. The chambers remain empty, but perhaps they were never meant to hold the dead. Perhaps they were designed for something far more remarkable, something that required precision engineering, acoustic resonance, and access to flowing water deep beneath the desert floor. The stones remember, even if we have forgotten. As evening approaches and the plateau's temperature begins its gradual descent toward the cool of desert night, the Great Pyramid stones tell a story written in mineral composition and crystalline structure. Every block chosen for this monument was selected not merely for durability or availability, but for properties that modern science is only beginning to understand, properties that transform simple construction materials into components of what might have been a massive electromagnetic device. The pyramid's outer casing, long since stripped away by medieval builders seeking ready-cut stone for Cairo's mosques and palaces, once consisted of finely polished white Tura limestone. This particular limestone variety contains a high percentage of fossilized marine organisms, creatures whose calcium carbonate shells create microscopic cavities throughout the stone. Under pressure, these cavities can generate piezoelectric effects, converting mechanical stress into electrical charge. The casing stones were fitted so precisely that knife blades could not slip between them, creating a continuous piezoelectric shell around the pyramid's mass. Beneath this limestone exterior lies the pyramid's bulk, local limestone blocks that form the monument's stepped core. But at the pyramid's heart, in chambers that required extraordinary effort to construct, builders chose an entirely different material. Red granite from Aswan forms the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the passages connecting them to the outside world. This granite contains up to 55% feldspar, 35% quartz, and significant quantities of mica, a mineral combination that creates natural electromagnetic properties. The quartz crystals embedded throughout this granite possess piezoelectric characteristics that dwarf those of the limestone casing. When subjected to pressure, and a pyramid exerts tremendous pressure upon its internal chambers, quartz generates measurable electrical charge. Modern electronics rely upon this same property, using quartz crystals as oscillators in everything from digital watches to radio transmitters. The granite chambers within the Great Pyramid contain millions of these natural oscillators, all subjected to the immense compressive forces of thousands of tons of limestone. Consider the precision with which these materials were arranged. The limestone pyramid acts as an insulator surrounding the granite core, much like the plastic sheathing around copper wire. The granite chambers function as conductors, their crystalline structure capable of generating and channeling electrical current. The missing capstone, according to ancient accounts, was made of gold or electrometals chosen, not for their symbolic value, but for their unmatched ability to conduct electrical energy. Recent analysis of the pyramid's internal passages reveals another crucial detail. Many contain a thin layer of crystalline deposits, likely formed by water that once flowed through these channels. These mineral deposits create additional conductive pathways throughout the structure, like neural networks connecting the pyramid's various chambers. Water flowing through limestone dissolves minerals that redeposit as crystalline formations in areas where pressure and temperature conditions change, precisely the conditions that would exist in passages connecting underground chambers to elevated spaces within the pyramid. The monument's builders also incorporated materials whose properties we're only beginning to appreciate. Microscopic analysis of mortar samples reveals the presence of iron oxide and magnetic minerals that create weak but measurable magnetic fields. These materials were not randomly chosen. They appear in specific locations throughout the structure, always in areas where electromagnetic effects would be most pronounced. Egyptian texts describe the Great Pyramid as the Mountain of Light and refer to its capstone as the fire in the darkness. Modern readers interpret these phrases metaphorically, but what if ancient writers were being quite literal? What if they described a monument that actually generated light through processes we've forgotten how to achieve? Tesla's experiments with wireless power transmission relied upon the same principles embedded in the pyramid's construction: crystalline oscillators, conductive materials arranged in precise geometric relationships, and grounding systems that connected his devices to Earth's natural electrical field. The pyramid's builders may have understood these principles millennia before Tesla rediscovered them in his Colorado Springs laboratory. As darkness settles over the plateau and stars begin their nightly emergence, the pyramid stones continue their eternal chemical and physical processes. Quartz crystals respond to pressure and temperature changes. Limestone slowly releases and absorbs moisture from the desert air. Granite maintains its internal electromagnetic field. The monument functions as a complex electromagnetic system, its every component selected and positioned according to principles that conventional archaeology has yet to fully comprehend. The stones themselves may be the best evidence for the pyramid's true function, not as a tomb, but as a power plant designed by engineers who understood forces we're only beginning to rediscover. As the desert night deepens and the temperature drops to levels that bring relief from the day's oppressive heat, the ancient relationship between the Great Pyramid and the life-giving waters of the Nile reveals. itself through geological evidence that conventional archaeology has long overlooked. Beneath the seemingly solid rock of the Giza Plateau lies a network of natural and artificial channels that once carried the river's waters directly beneath the monuments. Hydraulic system that may have powered the pyramid as mysterious functions. Modern ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected extensive void spaces beneath the plateau, arranged in patterns too regular to be natural cave formations. These underground chambers and passages appear to follow the natural limestone fissures that characterize the Giza bedrock, but show evidence of human modification and expansion. Most significantly, these subterranean spaces align with ancient courses of the Nile, suggesting they once carried water from the river to points directly beneath the pyramid complex. Geological evidence supports this interpretation. Core samples taken from around the Giza Plateau reveal layers of silt and organic material typically associated with river deposits, found at depths and locations that indicate the Nile once flowed much closer to the pyramids than its current course. During the 4th dynasty, when the Great Pyramid was constructed, the river ran along a channel that brought it within a few hundred meters of the monument's base. Natural limestone is porous, and water under pressure seeks the path of least resistance through underground fissures. Consider what this means for our understanding of the pyramid's function. Flowing water generates electrical charge through several well-documented mechanisms. As water moves through narrow channels, friction between the liquid and stone walls creates triboelectric effects, the same phenomenon that generates lightning in storm clouds. The faster the flow and the narrower the channel, the greater the electrical charge generated. Ancient engineers who understood these principles could have designed the pyramid's underground chambers as components of a massive hydroelectric system. The pyramid's subterranean chamber, carved directly into bedrock, connects to horizontal passages that extend into darkness beneath the plateau. Recent exploration of these passages has revealed evidence of water flow, mineral deposits characteristic of running water, erosion patterns that indicate sustained hydraulic activity, and crystalline formations that grow only in environments where dissolved minerals precipitate from moving water. These passages were not designed as burial chambers or symbolic representations of the underworld. They were engineered as part of a water management system. Egyptian engineering capabilities support this interpretation. The civilization that built the pyramids also constructed elaborate irrigation networks, managed the Nile's annual flood cycle, and created artificial lakes for water storage. Their understanding of hydraulics rivaled that of any ancient civilization. Texts from the period describe living water that possessed special properties, and temple inscriptions reference underground streams that carried divine energy. These may not have been mystical concepts, but technical descriptions of hydrodynamic processes we've misinterpreted as religious metaphor. The pyramid's internal chamber system aligns perfectly with principles of hydroelectric generation. Water entering the subterranean chamber would be channeled upward through the monument's ascending passages, creating pressure differentials that could drive turbine-like mechanisms. The granite chambers, with their precise dimensions and acoustic properties, could have functioned as resonance chambers that amplified and regulated the electrical effects generated by flowing water. Ancient accounts describe the pyramid's capstone as a golden pyramidion that gleamed with inner light. If the monument functioned as a hydroelectric generator, this capstone would have served as the system's terminal, a conductive metal peat that collected electrical charge from the granite chambers below and discharged it into the atmosphere. The pyramid would have functioned as a massive electrical antenna, powered by the Nile's flow and designed to transmit energy wirelessly across vast distances. Modern hydroelectric plants use the same basic principles, channeling flowing water through precisely designed chambers to generate electrical power. The pyramid's builders may have achieved this same result using simpler, but no less effective methods, limestone and granite, instead of concrete and steel, but arranged according to the same fundamental understanding of how moving water can be converted into usable energy. As the Nile continues its eternal flow past the plateau, now following a course that has shifted over millennia of geological change, the pyramid's underground chambers remain dry and silent. But the evidence of their original function persists in mineral deposits, erosion patterns, and the monument's precise alignment with ancient water sources. The river that gave life to Egyptian civilization may also have powered humanity as first great electrical generating station. In the profound silence of the pyramid's interior, where the bustle of the outside world fades to nothing, and only the whisper of one's own breathing disturbs the ancient quiet, the true acoustic nature of these chambers reveals itself to those who listen carefully. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the passages connecting them were not designed merely as spaces to hold the dead. They were engineered as precision acoustic instruments, tuned to frequencies that affect both matter and consciousness in ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. Strike the empty granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber, and it responds with a deep, resonant tone that seems to emerge not just from the stone itself, but from the very walls and floor of the chamber. This is no accident of construction. It is the result of precise engineering that takes into account the acoustic properties of granite, the dimensional relationships of the chamber, and the monument's internal geometry. The chamber resonates at 110 Hz, a frequency that lies just below the threshold of human hearing, but within a range that produces measurable effects on human consciousness. Modern acoustic analysis reveals that this frequency corresponds to what researchers call the Earth resonance, natural vibrations that occur within the planet's crust. Ancient builders may have understood that aligning human-made structures with these natural frequencies could amplify both the acoustic and energetic properties of their constructions. The king's chamber functions as a resonance chamber tuned to harmonize with Earth itself. The chamber's dimensions create standing wave patterns that concentrate acoustic energy at specific points within the space. Anyone positioned at these nodes would experience the full effects of the chamber's resonant frequency effects that include altered states of consciousness, enhanced meditative experiences, and physiological changes in brainwave patterns. Research into infrasound has demonstrated that frequencies around 110 Hz can induce feelings of transcendence, enhance creativity, and produce what many describe as spiritual experiences. The Queen's Chamber exhibits different, but equally intriguing acoustic properties. Its smaller dimensions create resonance at higher frequencies, approximately 440 Hz, a tone that corresponds to the musical note A, the frequency that modern orchestras use for tuning. This chamber also contains those mysterious shafts that angle upward through the pyramid's mass, each precisely positioned to affect the chamber's acoustic behavior. These shafts function as acoustic ports, allowing sound waves to travel through the pyramid's structure and potentially interact with resonance chambers in other parts of the monument. Recent experiments have demonstrated that sound generated in one pyramid chamber can be detected in distant parts of the structure, transmitted through the limestone blocks themselves. The pyramid functions as a massive acoustic resonator, its every passage and chamber contributing to a complex sound environment that transforms the monument into something resembling a stone musical instrument of enormous scale and sophistication. Consider the implications for the pyramid's original function. If ancient engineers understood acoustic resonance, they could have designed the monument to generate and amplify specific frequencies for purposes we can only imagine. The flowing water hypothesized to move through underground chambers would create natural sound as it moved through narrow passages, sound that the pyramid, as acoustic design, would amplify and focus in chambers where human occupants could experience its effects. Egyptian texts describe temple rituals involving priests who chanted at specific frequencies to invoke divine presence. These may not have been superstitious practices, but sophisticated applications of acoustic science. Priests positioned in acoustically designed chambers, chanting at frequencies that resonated with both the architecture and human consciousness, could have produced experiences that seemed genuinely supernatural to participants who understood them only in religious terms. The pyramid's missing capstone adds another dimension to this acoustic interpretation. A conductive metal pyramidion positioned at the monument's apex would not only serve as an electrical terminal, but as an acoustic antenna, projecting sound waves generated within the chambers out into the surrounding environment. The entire monument could have functioned as a massive acoustic transmitter, broadcasting frequencies across the Nile Valley. Archaeological evidence from other ancient sites supports this interpretation. Megalithic monuments worldwide exhibit similar acoustic properties, chambers tuned to specific frequencies, passages that channel and amplify sound, and architectural features that suggest their builders understood the relationship between sound, consciousness, and electromagnetic phenomena. The Great Pyramid may represent the most sophisticated achievement of a global understanding of acoustic engineering that we've forgotten how to replicate. As midnight approaches and the desert settles into its deepest quiet, the pyramid's chambers maintain their acoustic properties, ready to respond to any sound that might disturb their ancient silence. The granite walls remember the frequencies they were designed to amplify, and the precise dimensions that took decades to achieve continue their eternal function of transforming simple sound waves into something far more complex and mysterious. As the desert night reaches its deepest hour and countless stars wheel overhead in patterns that have guided human imagination for millennia, evidence emerges from across the ancient world of electrical phenomena that challenges our assumptions about technological development in prehistory. The Great Pyramid stands not as an isolated mystery, but as part of a global network of archaeological enigmas that suggest human understanding of electrical forces may be far older than conventional history acknowledges. In the Baghdad Museum sits a clay jar that has puzzled archaeologists since its discovery in 1936. The Baghdad Battery, as researchers have dubbed this artifact, represents just one piece of evidence that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge of electrical phenomena. Egyptian hieroglyphs describe temple lamps that burned without oil or flame, providing constant illumination in windowless chambers deep within sacred complexes. These eternal flames were said to burn for centuries without fuel, suggesting light sources that operated according to principles entirely different from combustion. The Temple of Hathor at Dendra contains relief carvings that modern eyes cannot help but interpret as electrical devices. These stone images depict objects that bear striking resemblance to large light bulbs, complete with filaments, sockets, and what appear to be power cables extending to other devices. Orthodox archaeology interprets these images as symbolic representations of lotus flowers and serpents, but the technical precision of the carvings suggests the artists were documenting actual objects rather than creating religious symbolism. Ancient Indian texts describe artificial suns that lit entire cities and lightning weapons capable of devastating armies. The Mahabharata, one of India's great epic poems, contains descriptions of aerial vehicles powered by mercury engines and weapons that produced effects indistinguishable from nuclear warfare. While these accounts are usually dismissed as mythological fantasy, they contain technical details that correspond to genuine scientific principles. The texts describe mercury as a power source for flying vehicles, and mercury does indeed become highly energetic when subjected to electrical current. Egyptian mythology speaks of the Eye of Ra, a source of divine light and power that could illuminate temples and strike down enemies. This eye was said to reside atop golden pyramids and to draw its power from the god's journey through the underworld each night. If we interpret these mythological accounts as technical descriptions disguised as religious narrative, they describe an electrical system powered by underground energy sources and transmitted through golden conductors positioned at pyramid apexes. The precision of ancient metallurgy also suggests electrical knowledge. Archaeological sites worldwide yield metal objects whose composition and craftsmanship required techniques that should have been impossible without electrical power. The Antikythera mechanism, a Greek device dating to approximately 100 BCE, contains bronze gears crafted with precision that rivals modern manufacturing capabilities. Such precision would require electrical tools for cutting, shaping, and finishing metal components. Consider also the global distribution of megalithic sites that exhibit similar construction techniques and astronomical alignments. From Stonehenge to Machu Picchu, from Easter Island to Angkor Wat, ancient builders achieved precision that suggests not only advanced engineering knowledge, but communication and coordination across vast distances. If these civilizations possessed electrical technology, they could have maintained contact through wireless transmission methods that we're only now rediscovering. Tesla has experiments with wireless power transmission echo principles that may have been understood and applied by ancient engineers. His Wardenclyffe Tower was designed to transmit electrical energy through Earth's natural electromagnetic field, using the planet itself as a conductor. The global network of pyramids and megalithic sites, all constructed according to similar geometric principles and aligned with astronomical phenomena, could represent nodes in an ancient wireless power grid that spanned continents. Ancient accounts of gods who descended from the sky in vehicles of light, who possessed weapons that commanded lightning, and thunder, who could communicate across vast distances instantaneously. These stories appear in every culture worldwide. Perhaps they preserve memories of technological capabilities that a previous civilization achieved and lost, leaving only scattered evidence and mythological accounts of powers that seemed supernatural to later generations who had forgotten the science behind them. As the night deepens and the pyramid stands silhouetted against stars that once guided ancient navigators across trackless deserts and endless seas, the possibility emerges that we are not the first human civilization to harness electrical forces. The evidence scattered across archaeological sites worldwide suggests that knowledge of electricity, wireless transmission, and electromagnetic phenomena may be humanity's forgotten inheritance waiting to be rediscovered in the precise angles of pyramid chambers and the resonant frequencies of ancient stone. As dawn approaches once again over the Giza Plateau and the first hints of light begin to outline the pyramid's eastern face, the shadow of a more recent visionary falls across these ancient monuments. Nikola Tesla, whose revolutionary understanding of electrical forces led him to study the Great Pyramid with the intensity of an engineer examining a master's blueprint. Tesla's notebooks, filled with calculations about wireless power transmission and resonant frequencies, contain repeated references to the pyramid's dimensions, proportions, and potential function as an electrical device. Tesla's fascination with the Great Pyramid began during his work on wireless power transmission at his Colorado Springs laboratory in 1899. There, surrounded by massive electrical coils that could generate lightning-like discharges, he discovered that Earth itself could serve as a conductor for electrical energy. His experiments revealed that electrical charge could be transmitted through the planet's crust and atmosphere to power devices at great distances without wires. The key to this technology lay in understanding Earth as natural resonant frequency and designing transmitters that could harmonize with it. When Tesla analyzed the Great Pyramid's dimensions, he found mathematical relationships that corresponded precisely to his own calculations for optimal wireless transmission. The pyramid's height of 481 feet, when combined with its base dimensions, created ratios that matched the wavelengths Tesla had identified as most effective for global power transmission. More remarkably, the pyramid's location at 30 degrees north latitude positioned it at a point where Earth's electromagnetic field exhibits optimal properties for wireless energy transmission. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, constructed on Long Island between 1901 and 1906, incorporated design principles that eerily mirror the Great Pyramid's architecture. The tower rose from an underground chamber that extended 120 feet into the earth, depth calculated to access groundwater and connect with Earth's natural electrical field. Above ground, the structure tapered to a copper-clad dome designed to collect and transmit electrical energy through the atmosphere. The entire system functioned as a massive antenna tuned to Earth's resonant frequency, capable of broadcasting power to receivers positioned anywhere on the planet. The parallels between Tesla's tower and the Great Pyramid extend beyond mere architectural similarity. Both structures were designed around precise geometric relationships that optimize electromagnetic resonance. Both incorporated underground chambers that connected to water sources. Both featured conductive metal components at their apex. Both were positioned at locations where Earth's natural electromagnetic field exhibited favorable characteristics for power transmission. Tesla's notebooks contain calculations suggesting that a pyramid of the Great Pyramid's exact dimensions, constructed using modern conductive materials and positioned at an optimal electromagnetic location, could generate and transmit electrical power on a scale that would dwarf any conventional power plant. His theoretical pyramid power station would draw energy from Earth's natural electromagnetic field, amplify it through resonant chamber systems, and broadcast it wirelessly to receivers positioned throughout the hemisphere. Consider Tesla's own description of his wireless power system. The transmission of electrical energy to any distance without wires is now possible. The Earth acts as a resonator, and electrical oscillations of definite character are transmitted through it and the atmosphere. This description could serve equally well as an explanation of how the Great Pyramid might have functioned as an ancient power station, using technologies that Tesla was attempting to recreate with 20th century materials and knowledge. Tesla believed that ancient civilizations possessed technological knowledge that modern humanity had lost. In interviews late in his life, he suggested that the builders of the Great Pyramid understood principles of electrical resonance that he was struggling to rediscover. He spoke of ancient texts that described fire from heaven and lightning captured in stone as literal rather than metaphorical descriptions of electrical technology. The failure of Tesla's Wardenclyffe project abandoned when financier J.P. Morgan withdrew funding in 1906 may have repeated a pattern that occurred in ancient times. Tesla's wireless power transmission threatened established interests in conventional electrical generation and distribution. Similarly, ancient pyramid technology might have been suppressed or forgotten when it conflicted with emerging political or religious power structures that preferred more controllable energy systems. Tesla's theoretical analysis suggested that the Great Pyramid, if properly activated, could transmit power sufficient to supply electrical needs across the entire Mediterranean region. His calculations indicated that the pyramid's internal chamber system would function as a massive oscillator, generating electrical frequencies that would resonate through Earth's crust and atmosphere to power cities, temples, and devices throughout the ancient world. Modern analysis of Tesla's work reveals that his understanding of electromagnetic phenomena was decades ahead of his time and may have been centuries behind its original discovery. As the sun rises once again over monuments that predate Tesla's birth by more than 4,000 years, the possibility emerges that the Serbian genius spent his life attempting to recreate technologies that the pyramid builders had mastered and lost to the turning of ages. As morning light spreads across the Giza Plateau, illuminating not just the three Great Pyramids, but the numerous smaller monuments, temples, and precisely aligned causeways that comprise this vast archaeological complex, the question arises: who possessed the knowledge necessary to design and construct these marvels? A conventional answer: 4th dynasty Egyptians working under pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure becomes increasingly problematic when examined against the technical sophistication these monuments represent. Consider the precision required to position the Great Pyramid's base stones. These foundation blocks, each weighing several tons, are positioned with tolerances measured in millimeters. The monument's 4 corners align with the cardinal directions to within 1/15 of a degree accuracy that rivals modern surveying techniques. The base forms a square whose sides vary in length by less than 2 centimeters across a perimeter of nearly 1 kilometer. Such precision requires not just advanced mathematical knowledge, but sophisticated measuring instruments and construction techniques that leave no trace in the archaeological record of 4th Dynasty Egypt. The pyramid's internal chamber system presents even greater engineering challenges. The Grand Gallery, a corbelled passage that ascends through the monument's heart, demonstrates understanding of structural engineering principles that weren't formally codified until the Renaissance. The gallery's walls lean inward at precisely calculated angles that distribute the enormous weight of overlying stone blocks, preventing the passage from collapsing under pressures that would crush conventional construction. The engineering knowledge required to design such a system presupposes generations of accumulated experience in large-scale stone construction. Yet the Great Pyramid appears suddenly in the archaeological record without precedent or developmental sequence. Earlier pyramid attempts at Medum and Dashur show evidence of trial and error, of builders struggling to master techniques that the Great Pyramid's architects had already perfected. This suggests that the Giza monuments represent not the culmination of Egyptian pyramid building, but the preservation of knowledge from an earlier tradition that 4th Dynasty pharaohs inherited rather than developed. Geological evidence supports this interpretation. The Sphinx, carved from bedrock adjacent to the Great Pyramid, exhibits erosion patterns that suggest exposure to rainfall on a scale unknown in Egypt since the end of the last ice age, approximately 10,000 years ago. If the Sphinx is indeed this ancient, it predates pharaonic Egypt by thousands of years and suggests the presence of a sophisticated civilization in the Nile Valley, long before the emergence of hieroglyphic writing and organized kingdom structures. The precision of pyramid construction appears throughout the ancient world, always without apparent developmental sequence. The megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru fit together with tolerances that knife blades cannot penetrate, despite individual stones weighing hundreds of tons. The dolmens of Newgrange in Ireland align with astronomical phenomena with precision that rivals modern observatories. The temples of Malta incorporate acoustic design principles that optimize sound resonance within their chambers. Each of these achievements suggests engineering knowledge that their supposedly primitive builders should not have possessed. Consider the possibility that these monuments represent the work of a civilization whose knowledge exceeded our own in specific areas, a culture that understood the relationship between geometry, acoustics, and electromagnetic phenomena in ways we're only beginning to rediscover. This civilization might have flourished during a climatic optimum that followed the last ice age, when the Sahara was green and the Nile Valley supported populations far larger than anything recorded in historical times. Ancient Egyptian texts preserve hints of this earlier age. The Turin King List, a hieroglyphic document that records pharaonic dynasties, begins not with human rulers, but with the gods who ruled Egypt for thousands of years before the first mortal pharaoh assumed power. These divine rulers are described as possessing knowledge that enabled them to raise stones to the sky and harness the fire of heaven. Later pharaohs claimed to rule by virtue of inheriting this ancient wisdom, but their monuments suggest they possessed only fragments of what their predecessors had understood. The Edfu Temple contains inscriptions describing the 7 sages who brought knowledge of construction, astronomy, and the capture of divine power to the Nile Valley after surviving a great catastrophe that destroyed their homeland. These sages are said to have taught human students the principles of stone that sings, water that gives life to stone, and fire that travels without fuel, descriptions that correspond remarkably to principles of piezoelectricity, hydroelectric generation, and wireless power transmission. If this hypothetical earlier civilization possessed advanced knowledge of electromagnetic phenomena, their monuments would serve purposes beyond mere religious or ceremonial function. The pyramids, Positioned at optimal locations for electromagnetic transmission and constructed using materials with specific electrical properties, could represent nodes in a global energy grid that powered ancient technology on a scale we've yet to imagine. The knowledge required to design such a system would encompass not just engineering and physics, but advanced understanding of Earth as electromagnetic field, atmospheric electrical phenomena, and the relationship between human consciousness and specific frequencies. This knowledge would be preserved in monuments, designed to function as both practical devices and repositories of scientific information libraries written in stone for civilizations, capable of reading their architectural language. As the morning sun climbs higher over monuments that may be humanity's oldest and most sophisticated technological achievements, the identity of their builders remains shrouded in mystery. But their legacy lives on in structures that continue to challenge our understanding of what ancient peoples could accomplish and what knowledge we may have lost in the catastrophes that ended their age. As the desert afternoon reaches its peak intensity and the ancient stones absorb heat that they will slowly release throughout the coming night, the Great Pyramid's relationship with the cosmos reveals itself through alignments so precise they suggest not mere symbolic significance, but functional necessity. The monument's orientation to cardinal directions, its mathematical relationship to Earth's dimensions, and its chamber's alignment with specific stellar configurations indicate that its builders understood astronomy not as religious mythology, but as engineering science. The pyramid's four sides align with the cardinal points of the compass to within 1/15 of a degree precision that requires not just careful observation but sophisticated understanding of Earth's rotation and the apparent motion of celestial bodies. Achieving such accuracy in 2580 BCE would have required astronomical knowledge that exceeds what conventional archaeology attributes to 4th dynasty Egypt. The builders must have understood the relationship between stellar positions and geographical directions, using star observations to orient their monument with exactitude that rivals modern surveying techniques. More intriguingly, the pyramid's internal passages align with stellar positions that held special significance for its builders. The so-called star shafts in both the king's and queen's chambers point toward specific constellations with precision that suggests functional rather than merely symbolic purpose. The southern shaft from the king's chamber aligns with Orion, the constellation Egyptians identified with Osiris, lord of the afterlife. The northern shaft points toward the circumpolar stars that ancient Egyptians called the imperishable ones, stars that never set below the horizon. But these alignments may serve purposes beyond religious symbolism. Modern astronomy has discovered that stellar positions correlate with electromagnetic phenomena that could affect electrical devices positioned on Earth's surface. Cosmic rays from specific stellar regions create measurable variations in Earth's electromagnetic field. If the pyramid functioned as an electrical device, its stellar alignments could have optimized its ability to harness cosmic electromagnetic energy. The pyramid's dimensions encode astronomical relationships that suggest its builders possessed sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics. The monument's base perimeter relates to its height in the same ratio as Earth's circumference relates to its radius. This relationship, encoded in stone thousands of years before Greek mathematicians calculated Earth's dimensions, suggests that the pyramid's builders understood our planet's true size and shape. Such knowledge would be essential for engineers designing a device intended to interact with Earth's electromagnetic field. Consider the precision required to embed these astronomical relationships in solid stone. The pyramid's builders had to understand not just the mathematics of celestial motion, but the engineering principles necessary to translate that understanding into architectural form. They needed to know how astronomical alignments would affect the electromagnetic properties of their construction, and how to optimize those effects for whatever purpose the monument was intended to serve. The Orion correlation, the correspondence between the three Giza pyramids and the three stars of Orion, as belt reveals additional layers of astronomical sophistication. The pyramid's relative positions mirror the star's configuration, but with a precision that suggests the builders were documenting specific stellar positions, rather than creating approximate symbolic representations. Computer analysis reveals that the pyramid-to-star correlation was exact around 1500 BCE, suggesting either that the monuments are far older than conventionally believed, or that their builders understood precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that changes star positions over millennia. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the pyramid complex as a stairway to heaven and a place where the god ascends to his star. These descriptions, usually interpreted as religious metaphor, might represent technical documentation of a device designed to interact with cosmic electromagnetic phenomena. If the pyramids functioned as antennas or resonators, their stellar alignments would optimize their ability to receive and transmit energy in harmony with cosmic cycles. The missing capstone adds another dimension to the pyramid's astronomical function. Ancient accounts describe this pyramidion as being made of gold or electrum and capable of reflecting starlight with extraordinary brilliance. A conductive metal capstone aligned with specific stellar positions could function as an antenna for cosmic electromagnetic radiation, collecting energy from stellar sources and channeling it down through the pyramid's conductive granite chambers. The pyramid's location, at 30 degrees north latitude, positions it at a point where Earth's electromagnetic field exhibits optimal characteristics for cosmic energy collection. This latitude lies precisely 1/3 of the way between the equator and the North Pole, creating geometric relationships that optimize the monument's interaction with both terrestrial and cosmic electromagnetic phenomena. Modern radio astronomy has revealed that specific stellar regions emit electromagnetic radiation in frequencies that could power electrical devices. The constellation Orion, toward which the pyramid's chambers align, includes stellar objects that emit powerful electromagnetic signals across a broad spectrum. If ancient engineers understood these cosmic energy sources, they could have designed their monuments to harness stellar electromagnetic radiation as a power source. As evening approaches and the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, the pyramid's stellar alignments prepare to demonstrate their precision once again. For more than 4,000 years, these alignments have continued to function with clockwork accuracy, suggesting that their builders understood cosmic cycles that extend far beyond human lifespans. The monument stands as a testament to astronomical knowledge that may have encompassed not just the observation of celestial motions, but the harnessing of cosmic forces for purposes we are only beginning to imagine. As twilight settles over the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramids' truncated summit becomes silhouetted against the emerging stars, the absence of its crowning element speaks to one of archaeology's most intriguing mysteries. The pyramidion, the capstone that once crowned this monument, has vanished so completely that no trace remains of what may have been the most crucial component in the pyramid's original function as an energy-generating device. Ancient accounts describe the Great Pyramid's capstone as a marvel that surpassed even the monument itself in magnificence. Classical writers, including Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus, recorded that the pyramid was crowned with a pyramidion, made of electrum, an alloy of gold and silver, prized for its electrical conductivity. This capstone was said to gleam with inner light, visible from great distances, and to serve as a beacon that could guide travelers across the desert even on the darkest nights. The missing pyramidion measured approximately 6 feet on each side of its base and stood roughly 5 feet tall, dimensions that would have made it a substantial structure in its own right. Weighing several tons and requiring considerable engineering skill to position precisely at the pyramid's apex. Egyptian texts describe the installation of pyramid capstones as ceremonies of cosmic significance, involving astronomical observations and ritualistic procedures that suggest the capstone's function extended far beyond mere architectural completion. Consider what a conductive metal pyramidion would accomplish if the Great Pyramid indeed functioned as an electrical generator. Positioned at the apex of a structure containing millions of piezoelectric quartz crystals under tremendous pressure, connected to granite chambers that exhibit electromagnetic properties, the capstone would serve as the terminal point for electrical energy generated within the monument. Like the metallic tip of a lightning rod, it would collect and discharge electrical current, but on a scale that dwarfs any conventional electrical device. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic texts refer to the pyramidion as the Benben stone, associated with the primordial mound from which the sun god Ra first emerged. This sacred stone was said to possess the power to capture the fire of heaven and to serve as a conduit between earthly and divine realms. If interpreted as technical rather than religious description, these texts describe a device capable of collecting atmospheric electrical energy and channeling it through the pyramid's internal systems. The pyramid's unique geometry would optimize the capstone's electrical function. The monument's pointed apex would concentrate electrical charge at a single point, creating intense electromagnetic fields around the capstone. In combination with the pyramid's stellar alignments, which position the capstone to interact with cosmic electromagnetic radiation, this design would maximize the capstone's ability to collect energy from multiple sources: atmospheric electricity, stellar radiation, and Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Archaeological evidence from other Egyptian pyramids supports the electrical interpretation of pyramidion function. The Pyramid of Amenhotep III at Dashur retained its black granite capstone, which exhibits unusual magnetic properties and contains minerals that generate weak electrical fields. This capstone shows evidence of having been subjected to intense electromagnetic phenomena, crystalline structures altered by exposure to powerful electrical fields, surface modifications consistent with electrical discharge, and magnetic orientation that suggests exposure to strong electromagnetic forces. The technology required to construct and install a functional pyramidion would have been sophisticated even by modern standards. The capstone would need to be crafted from materials with optimal electrical conductivity, shaped to precise geometric specifications, and positioned with accuracy measured in millimeters. Any deviation from optimal placement would compromise the entire system's electrical efficiency. The engineering knowledge required for such precision suggests that the pyramid's builders understood electromagnetic principles with sophistication that rivals modern electrical engineering. Ancient accounts describe the installation of the Great Pyramid's capstone as occurring during a ceremony timed to coincide with specific astronomical events. The capstone was said to be positioned when certain stars reached optimal positions, suggesting that its function depended on cosmic electromagnetic conditions. If the pyramid operated as an energy device, the timing of the capstone's installation would be crucial for achieving proper electromagnetic resonance with stellar radiation sources. The disappearance of the Great Pyramid's pyramidion represents more than simple theft or weathering. It suggests deliberate removal by people who understood the significance. Later Egyptian dynasties might have removed and reused the capstone for other monuments. Medieval Islamic rulers could have melted it down for its precious metal content. Or it might have been removed and hidden by groups who understood its true function and sought to prevent its technology from being misused. Modern attempts to recreate pyramid power generation focus heavily on the capstone's role in the theoretical system. Electrical engineers studying the pyramid's design conclude that any functional reconstruction would require a precisely designed terminal element at the apex, essentially a modern version of the ancient pyramidion. These theoretical capstones would need to incorporate materials and design principles that optimize electromagnetic resonance while maintaining the geometric relationships that ancient builders embedded in the original structure. As the desert night deepens and stars wheel overhead in patterns that have remained constant since the pyramid's construction, the monument's flat summit speaks eloquently of lost knowledge. Somewhere beneath the sands of Egypt or in the vaults of ancient treasure houses, The Great Pyramid's original capstone may still exist, key to understanding technologies that could revolutionize our approach to energy generation and transmission. Until it is found, the pyramid stands incomplete, its electrical potential unrealized, waiting for the restoration of the crowning element that could awaken its dormant power. As the night deepens over Giza and the constellation Orion rises toward its zenith, the same stellar configuration that guided pyramid builders over 4 millennia ago, the possibility emerges that the Great Pyramid was never intended to function in isolation. Scattered across Earth's surface lie monuments of similar sophistication, constructed according to comparable geometric principles, and positioned at locations that suggest they may have comprised nodes in a global network of electromagnetic devices designed to harness and transmit energy on a planetary scale. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, rising from the Mexican plateau 75 miles northeast of modern Mexico City, exhibits mathematical relationships to the Great Pyramid that transcend mere coincidence. Both monuments incorporate the same fundamental geometric ratios, both align with cardinal directions with extraordinary precision, and both were constructed using massive stone blocks, fitted together with tolerances that challenge modern construction capabilities. Most remarkably, the Pyramid of the Sun's base dimensions relate to the Great Pyramid's measurements and ratios that suggest both were designed according to a common mathematical system. Halfway around the world, the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia demonstrate similar precision in their astronomical alignments and geometric relationships. The complex's central temple aligns with the constellation Draco at the spring equinox, while its causeway points toward Regulus, the brightest star in Leo, during the summer solstice. The temple's dimensions encode mathematical constants found in the Great Pyramid, including pi and the golden ratio, suggesting that both monuments were designed by builders who shared advanced mathematical knowledge. The megalithic complex at Pumapunku in Bolivia presents perhaps the most puzzling parallels to Egyptian pyramid technology. The site's massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut and fitted with precision that exceeds modern manufacturing tolerances. The blocks contain complex interlocking joints, precisely drilled holes, and surface finishes that require advanced machining techniques. Like the Great Pyramid, Pumapunku shows no evidence of developmental construction techniques. It appears suddenly in the archaeological record as a fully realized technological achievement. Consider the global distribution of these monuments and their relationship to Earth's electromagnetic field. The Great Pyramid sits at 30 degrees north latitude, positioned at a point where the planet's electromagnetic field exhibits optimal characteristics for energy transmission. Similar monuments cluster around other electromagnetically significant latitudes. Stonehenge at 51 degrees north, Machu Picchu at 13 degrees south, Easter Island at 27 degrees south. This distribution suggests that ancient builders understood the relationship between geographic position and electromagnetic phenomena, selecting locations that would optimize their monuments' function as energy devices. The mathematics encoded in these structures support the power grid interpretation. Advanced geometric relationships appear consistently across cultures that supposedly had no contact with each other. The same astronomical alignments, the same proportional systems, the same understanding of Earth's dimensions. The probability that such sophisticated mathematical knowledge developed independently in widely separated cultures approaches zero. More likely, these monuments represent the work of a civilization that possessed global reach and shared technological knowledge across continents. Ancient texts from multiple cultures describe a golden age when temples blazed with inner light and fire traveled without fuel between distant locations. Hindu scriptures describe Vimanas, flying vehicles powered by Mercury engines that could travel between cities connected by pillars of fire reaching to heaven. Egyptian texts reference the fire of Ra that connected temples across the kingdom. Mayan codices describe sky serpents that carried light and power between pyramid cities. These accounts, dismissed as mythology by conventional archaeology, might preserve memories of a global energy transmission system that connected ancient monuments. The engineering required for such a system would surpass any technology we've yet developed. A global wireless power grid would need to overcome Earth's curvature, atmospheric interference, and the enormous power requirements for transmitting energy across continents. Yet Tesla's experiments demonstrated that such transmission is theoretically possible using Earth itself as a conductor. If ancient engineers understood these principles and possessed materials technology superior to our own, they could have achieved wireless power transmission on a global scale. The precision of monument construction worldwide suggests access to advanced tools and techniques that leave no trace in the conventional archaeological record. Cutting granite to tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, transporting massive stones across hundreds of miles, and positioning monuments according to astronomical alignments, accurate to arc minutes, all require technology that supposedly primitive cultures should not have possessed. The global consistency of these achievements suggests coordination by a civilization with technological capabilities that exceeded our own in specific areas. Modern analysis of monument locations reveals additional evidence for the power grid hypothesis. Plotting these sites on maps that account for continental drift and sea level changes over the past 12,000 years reveals geometric patterns that encompass the entire planet. Lines connecting monument locations form regular polygons, geodesic patterns, and mathematical relationships that suggest intentional design rather than random distribution. The monuments appear to be positioned according to a master plan that took into account Earth's electromagnetic field, rotational dynamics, and geological structure. The catastrophic end of the last ice age, approximately 10,700 years ago, coincides with the cessation of monument building on a global scale. Rapid climate change, rising sea levels, and geological instability could have disrupted a global civilization that depended on precisely positioned monuments for energy transmission. Surviving populations might have retained fragments of ancient knowledge, using it to construct monuments like the Great Pyramid as attempts to recreate technologies they no longer fully understood. As the night sky wheels overhead, displaying the same stellar patterns that guided ancient builders across continents and centuries, the monuments stand as silent testimony to possibilities that conventional archaeology has yet to fully explore. Whether tombs, temples, or power plants, these structures represent achievements that challenge our understanding of human technological development and suggest that our species may have reached heights of sophistication far earlier than we have dared to imagine. As the pre-dawn hours settle over the Giza Plateau and the desert air carries whispers of ancient secrets across stones that have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the mythological traditions of Egypt reveal themselves not as primitive superstition, but as technical documentation disguised in the language of gods and magic. The stories carved into temple walls, painted in tomb chambers, and preserved in papyrus scrolls speak consistently of light, fire, and divine energy in ways that may describe actual phenomena rather than religious metaphor. The ancient Egyptian concept of the Eye of Ra appears throughout dynastic art and literature as a source of divine light that could illuminate temples, strike down enemies, and travel across the sky in the solar bark. Conventional Egyptology interprets this as poetic description of the sun's daily journey, but the technical details embedded in these accounts suggest something far more sophisticated. The Eye of Ra is described as being captured in stone, fed by the waters of the underworld, and capable of casting light without flame throughout temple complexes. Temple inscriptions at Edfu describe the construction of monuments designed to harness the fire of heaven, using techniques that sound remarkably like electrical engineering. The texts reference copper serpents that carry the god's power through channels cut in living rock. They describe stones that sing when touched by the god's fire, and golden peaks that call down lightning from clear skies. These descriptions, written in hieroglyphs that modern Egyptologists translate as religious allegory, might preserve technical instructions for constructing and operating electrical devices. The mythology of Osiris, central to Egyptian religious belief, contains elements that correspond to principles of electromagnetic phenomena. Osiris is described as being dismembered by his brother, Set scattered into pieces that were then reassembled by his wife Isis to restore his power. If interpreted as technical rather than mythological narrative, this story might describe the process of distributing electrical energy through multiple components of a complex system, and then reintegrating those components to restore full operational capacity. The goddess Isis, whose cult spread throughout the Mediterranean world, was associated with hidden fire and the light that conquers darkness. Temple reliefs show her with outstretched wings that carry the god's power to distant locations. Her priests were said to maintain eternal flames that burned without fuel in temple sanctuaries. Archaeological investigation of Isis temples has revealed chamber systems with acoustic and electromagnetic properties similar to those found in pyramid complexes, suggesting that her cult preserved knowledge of energy generation and transmission techniques. Egyptian funerary texts describe the deceased pharaoh's journey through the Duat, the underworld realm where the soul travails before resurrection. This journey is depicted as passing through chambers filled with lakes of fire, serpents of light, and gods who speak in thunder. The geography of the Duat corresponds remarkably to the layout of underground chamber systems beneath pyramid complexes. If these texts describe actual locations rather than spiritual realms, they might serve as technical manuals for navigating and operating subterranean energy generation facilities. The concept of Heka, often translated as magic, but literally meaning activating the Ka, appears in Egyptian texts as a force that could animate statues, illuminate temples, and transport objects across great distances. Heka was said to be generated through specific rituals performed in properly designed chambers, using materials that included gold, copper, and specially prepared stones. These descriptions sound less like magical incantations and more like operating procedures for electromagnetic devices that required precise materials and environmental conditions to function properly. Ancient accounts describe pharaohs possessing crooks and flails that could command the lightning and speak across the desert without voice. These royal regalia, interpreted by modern archaeology as purely ceremonial objects, might have been functional devices designed to control or communicate with electrical systems. The crook's shepherd's hook shape resembles modern electrical conductors, while the flail's segmented design mirrors the construction of electrical transformers and resistors. The mythology surrounding the construction of the first pyramid describes the god Thoth providing words of power that could lift stones to the sky and join granite to limestone without mortar. Thoth, associated with wisdom and writing, was said to possess knowledge of forces that could manipulate matter according to divine will. If Thoth represents not a deity, but a title for engineer priests who understood advanced construction techniques, these myths might preserve memories of technologies that made pyramid construction possible. Egyptian creation mythology speaks of the primordial waters of Nun, from which the first land emerged as the Benben stone, the same term used for the pyramid as capstone. This creation myth might describe the activation of an electrical system that used underground water sources to generate power, with the Benben serving as the terminal point where electrical energy emerged from the earth to power the devices of civilization. The god Ptah, patron of craftsmen and builders, was said to create through speech. By speaking the names of things, he brought them into existence. Temple inscriptions describe Ptah's voice as having the power to shape stone with sound and join elements that nature keeps apart. Modern understanding of acoustic phenomena suggests that specific sound frequencies can indeed affect material properties, potentially explaining construction techniques that allowed ancient builders to work stone with precision that conventional tools cannot achieve. As dawn approaches and the first light begins to reveal the pyramid's precise geometry once again, these ancient myths take on new significance. Rather than primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena, they may represent sophisticated technical knowledge encoded in language that could survive the collapse of the civilization that created it. The gods of Egypt might have been not supernatural beings, but titles for the scientists and engineers who designed humanity's first great technological civilization whose achievements we are only beginning to rediscover in the precise angles of ancient stones and the resonant frequencies of forgotten chambers. As morning light bathes the Giza Plateau and illuminates the weathered features of the Great Sphinx, this enigmatic monument presents mysteries that may hold keys to understanding the entire complex's original function. Carved from a single outcropping of limestone bedrock, the Sphinx sits like a sentinel guarding the pyramid complex. Its lion's body stretched in eternal vigilance, while its human head smaller than originally intended and possibly recarved in later dynasties gazes eternally eastward toward the rising sun. Recent geological analysis of the Sphinx has revealed evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about the monument's age and purpose. The limestone from which it was carved shows erosion patterns characteristic of sustained rainfall, vertical weathering channels that could have formed only through centuries of precipitation on a scale unknown in Egypt since the end of the last ice age. Dr. Robert Schock, a geologist from Boston University, has argued that this erosion pattern indicates the Sphinx was carved no later than 7000 BCE, and possibly several thousand years earlier, placing its construction in an era when the Sahara was green and the Nile Valley supported far larger populations than recorded history suggests. If the Sphinx is indeed this ancient, it predates the pyramids by thousands of years and suggests that the Giza complex was sacred to a civilization that flourished long before pharaonic Egypt. This earlier culture might have chosen the location for its natural electromagnetic properties, its geological structure, or its relationship to underground water sources that later pyramid builders would incorporate into their designs. The Sphinx would represent not just a guardian statue, but the oldest component of an energy generation complex that evolved over millennia. The Sphinx's internal structure adds another layer to the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic analysis have detected void spaces within the monument's body chambers that were either carved intentionally or formed through natural geological processes and later modified by human activity. These internal spaces could serve structural purposes, but they might also have been designed as resonance chambers similar to those found within the pyramids. The Sphinx's limestone body, when subjected to pressure or vibration, could generate piezoelectric effects that would contribute to the complex's overall electromagnetic activity. The monument's precise astronomical alignments suggest functional rather than merely symbolic purpose. The Sphinx faces due east, aligning with the equinox sunrise and creating a relationship with celestial mechanics that ancient engineers could have used for timing and calibration purposes. During the spring equinox, the rising sun appears directly between the monument's paws when viewed from the Great Pyramids' base, an alignment that suggests the two monuments were designed as components of a unified system. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the Sphinx as Hor-em-Akhet, meaning Horus of the horizon, and associated with divine guardianship of sacred knowledge. Temple inscriptions refer to chambers beneath the Sphinx that contain the records of the gods and the fire that lights the temple. These references might describe technical archives rather than religious artifacts, repositories of engineering, knowledge necessary for operating and maintaining the pyramid complex's energy generation systems. Modern excavation around the Sphinx has revealed evidence of extensive underground construction. Shafts and passages extend beneath the monument, connecting to chamber systems that may link with the pyramid complex's subterranean water channels. These underground spaces show evidence of having once contained water mineral deposits characteristic of standing or flowing water, erosion patterns that indicate hydraulic activity, and crystalline formations that grow in aqueous environments. If water indeed flowed through chambers beneath the Sphinx, these spaces could have served as components of the complex's hydroelectric generation system. The Sphinx's relationship to the missing pyramid causeway creates additional possibilities for understanding its function. The causeway that once connected the Great Pyramid to its valley temple passed directly beside the Sphinx, suggesting that the monument played a role in whatever activities occurred along this processional route. If the pyramids functioned as power plants, the causeways might have served as transmission corridors, carrying electrical energy from the monuments to distribution points throughout the ancient complex. The Sphinx's position, adjacent to this transmission corridor, could indicate its role as a control mechanism or regulator within the energy distribution system. Ancient accounts describe rituals performed at the Sphinx during specific astronomical events, ceremonies that involved priests entering chambers beneath the monument to perform activities that awakened the guardian and called forth the goddess power. These rituals might have been operating procedures for activating electromagnetic devices housed within the Sphinx's body or in chambers beneath it. The astronomical timing of these ceremonies suggests they were designed to coincide with optimal conditions for energy generation or transmission. The Sphinx's smaller head, disproportionate to its massive body, has long puzzled archaeologists. Some researchers suggest the head was recarved during pharaonic times, replacing an original lion's head that would have been proportionate to the body. If this theory is correct, the original Sphinx would have been a complete lionoid, form that would optimize the monument's acoustic and electromagnetic properties by eliminating the structural discontinuity created by the human head. A complete lion form would create more uniform resonance characteristics throughout the monument's limestone mass. The positioning of the Sphinx in relation to underground water sources adds another dimension to its potential function. The monument sits at a point where natural limestone aquifers converge, creating underground water pressure that could drive hydraulic systems throughout the complex. Ancient engineers might have chosen this location specifically for its hydrological properties, designing the Sphinx as a control mechanism for regulating water flow through the complex's power generation systems. As the sun climbs higher and casts the Sphinx's shadow across the sand-covered paws that once rested on stone platforms, now buried beneath centuries of accumulation, this ancient guardian continues to pose questions that challenge our understanding of the entire Giza complex. Whether carved as a religious symbol, an architectural component, or a technological device, the Sphinx stands as testimony to the sophisticated knowledge possessed by its creators, knowledge that encompassed geology, hydrology, astronomy, and possibly electromagnetic phenomena in ways that we're only beginning to comprehend. As the desert heat reaches its midday intensity and the sand above the Giza plateau shimmers with thermal currents that distort the horizon, sophisticated ground-penetrating radar reveals a hidden landscape of chambers, passages, and void spaces that extend far beneath the visible monuments. This subterranean architecture, carved from bedrock and constructed with the same precision that characterizes the surface structures, suggests that the pyramid complex extends downward as extensively as it rises toward the sky, a vast underground facility that may have served as the true heart of the ancient energy generation system. Modern geophysical surveys, using ground-penetrating radar, seismic analysis, and electromagnetic mapping, have detected an extensive network of underground spaces beneath the Giza plateau. These void spaces appear too regular and precisely positioned to be natural cave formations. They follow geometric patterns that suggest intentional design, with passages connecting chamber systems in ways that mirror the internal architecture of the pyramids themselves. The underground complex extends beneath all three major pyramids, connecting them through subterranean corridors that would have allowed movement and possibly fluid flow between the monuments. Dr. Zahi Hawass, former Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, has acknowledged the existence of these underground anomalies while restricting access to them for reasons of structural preservation and archaeological methodology. However, limited exploration of accessible underground spaces has revealed construction techniques and materials that match the sophistication of the surface monuments. Chamber walls show the same precise stone cutting found in pyramid passages, and granite elements appear in locations that would have required tremendous effort to position during construction. The subterranean chamber system beneath the Great Pyramid connects to natural limestone aquifers that once carried water from the Nile to points throughout the plateau. Core drilling has revealed that these aquifers were modified by human activity, widened, redirected, and connected to artificial chamber systems that could have regulated water flow throughout the complex. If the pyramids functioned as hydroelectric generators, these underground water management systems would have been essential for providing the flowing water necessary to generate electrical current. Recent analysis of water mineral deposits found in these underground spaces reveals chemical compositions that suggest the presence of dissolved metals, copper, gold, and silver ions that would have created conductive solutions capable of carrying electrical current. When mineral-rich water flows through chambers containing different types of stone, it creates galvanic effects that generate electrical charge. The underground chamber system beneath Giza shows evidence of having been designed to optimize these electrochemical processes. The positioning of underground chambers correlates with electromagnetic anomalies detected through magnetometer surveys of the plateau. Areas where geophysical instruments detect unusual magnetic field variations correspond to locations where ground-penetrating radar identifies underground void spaces. This correlation suggests that whatever activities occurred in these subterranean chambers generated electromagnetic effects that persist in the geological record thousands of years after the chambers were abandoned. Ancient Egyptian texts describe houses of nature beneath the pyramid's sacred spaces where priests perform rituals involving the god as hidden fire. The word nature, usually translated as God, can also mean divine power or sacred energy. If these texts describe actual underground facilities rather than mythological locations, they provide insight into activities that occurred in chambers designed to generate and control electrical phenomena. The texts describe these underground spaces as containing waters that never cease flowing and stones that speak with the god's voice, descriptions that could refer to hydroelectric generation and acoustic resonance phenomena. Exploration of accessible underground areas has revealed evidence of sophisticated engineering knowledge. Chamber construction incorporates principles of structural engineering that prevent collapse under the enormous weight of overlying monuments. Ventilation systems maintain air circulation through spaces hundreds of feet underground. Drainage systems prevent water accumulation in areas where it would compromise structural integrity. The engineering expertise required for such underground construction exceeds anything attributed to 4th Dynasty Egypt by conventional archaeology. The underground complex includes spaces that appear to have been designed for specific technical purposes. Some chambers show evidence of having contained mechanical devices, anchor points for machinery, channels for moving fluids or materials, and access shafts that would have allowed operation and maintenance of equipment. Other chambers exhibit acoustic properties that suggest they were designed as resonance spaces, similar to the sound chambers found within the pyramids, but optimized for underground conditions. Electromagnetic surveys of the underground areas reveal materials with unusual electrical properties embedded in chamber walls and floors. These materials include minerals that generate weak electrical fields, metals that exhibit magnetic properties, and crystalline formations that respond to electromagnetic stimulation. The deliberate placement of such materials suggests that the underground chambers were designed to interact with electromagnetic phenomena in ways that serve the complex as overall function. The water management aspects of the underground system show sophisticated understanding of hydraulic engineering. Channels carved in bedrock direct water flow according to principles that optimize pressure and volume for maximum energy generation. Settling basins allow sediment removal to prevent clogging of narrow passages. Distribution systems could have carried water to multiple locations throughout the complex while maintaining the pressure differentials necessary for hydroelectric generation. Access to most of these underground areas remains restricted by Egyptian authorities, limiting scientific investigation of what may be archaeology's most significant unexplored site. However, the evidence gathered through non-invasive surveys suggests that full exploration of the subterranean complex could revolutionize our understanding of ancient Egyptian technological capabilities and provide crucial evidence for evaluating theories about the pyramids' function as energy generation devices. As afternoon shadows begin to lengthen across the plateau and the desert heat starts its slow dissipation into the approaching evening, the monuments above ground stand as visible testimony to ancient achievement, while the far more extensive underground complex remains hidden beneath the sand. The true scale of what ancient engineers accomplished at Giza may be invisible to casual observation, buried in chambers that continue to guard their secrets, thousands of years after their builders vanished into the mists of forgotten history. As the afternoon sun begins its descent toward the western horizon and the Great Pyramids' shadow lengthens across the plateau, the possibility emerges that what we interpret as ancient Egyptian religion may have been a sophisticated system for managing and controlling advanced technology. The elaborate rituals, complex priesthoods, and mysterious ceremonies that filled Egyptian temples might have served not merely spiritual purposes, but practical functions maintaining, operating, and regulating energy generation systems that required constant attention from trained specialists. Egyptian temples throughout the Nile Valley exhibit architectural features that suggest technological rather than purely religious function. The Temple of Karnak, covering more than 200 acres, contains chamber systems with acoustic properties that amplify and focus sound waves. The Temple of Philae shows evidence of having been constructed around natural granite outcroppings that exhibit electromagnetic properties. The Temple of Edfu contains inscriptions describing technical procedures disguised as religious ritual ceremonies involving specific materials, precise timing, and actions that sound remarkably like operating instructions for complex machinery. The Egyptian priesthood possessed knowledge and responsibilities that extended far beyond what modern concepts of religious leadership encompass. Priestly training required decades of study in mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and what texts describe as the mysteries of the gods' power. Priests were organized into specialized groups, some responsible for astronomical observations, others for maintaining temple equipment, still others for performing rituals that modern translation renders as religious ceremony, but which might have been technical procedures essential for operating advanced devices. Temple inscriptions describe daily rituals that priests performed to feed the god and maintain the divine fire. These ceremonies involved specific materials: gold, copper, specially prepared oils, and waters drawn from sacred sources. The rituals followed precise timing based on astronomical observations and required performance in chambers designed with exact acoustic and geometric properties. Rather than symbolic offerings to supernatural beings, these might have been maintenance procedures for electrical systems that required regular attention to function properly. The concept of Mat, usually translated as cosmic order or divine truth, appears throughout Egyptian religious texts as a force that priests were responsible for maintaining through proper ritual performance. Mat was said to require constant attention, failing catastrophically if priests neglected their duties or performed ceremonies incorrectly. This description could apply to technological systems that require regular maintenance and precise operating procedures to prevent dangerous failures. The priest's role in maintaining Mat might have been literally true, They were responsible for keeping energy systems operational and safe. Egyptian mythology describes gods who required daily feeding with offerings that included specific metals, oils, and foods. These offerings were said to maintain the gods' power and ensure their continued benevolence toward human civilization. If interpreted as technical rather than religious requirements, these offerings might represent materials necessary for maintaining electrical systems, conductive metals for electrical connections, oils for lubricating mechanical components, and organic materials for chemical processes essential to energy generation. The elaborate mummification process, central to Egyptian mortuary religion, might have served technological purposes beyond preserving the dead. Mummification requires precise knowledge of chemistry, anatomy, and materials science. The process produces materials with specific electrical properties, desiccated tissue that acts as an insulator, metallic salts used in preservation that conduct electricity, and organic compounds that can serve as components in chemical batteries. Egyptian texts describe mummies as possessing divine power that could influence the living world, perhaps referring to electrical properties rather than supernatural abilities. Temple architecture throughout Egypt incorporates design elements that optimize electromagnetic phenomena. Chambers are positioned to align with stellar configurations that emit specific frequencies of cosmic radiation. Materials are arranged to create electrical circuits connecting different areas of temple complexes. Underground chambers beneath temples show evidence of water management systems similar to those found beneath the Giza pyramids. These architectural features suggest that temples functioned as nodes in an energy distribution network that connected monuments throughout Egypt. The pharaoh's role as intermediary between gods and humans might have been literally accurate if the gods represented technological systems that required human operation. Royal regalia included items with clear electromagnetic properties, gold crowns that could serve as electromagnetic antennas, copper staffs that function as electrical conductors, and jeweled ornaments containing crystals with piezoelectric characteristics. Pharaonic ceremonies often involved the ruler entering sacred chambers where he performed rituals that renewed his divine power, possibly referring to procedures for recharging or recalibrating technological devices. Egyptian religious festivals followed astronomical cycles with precision that suggests functional rather than merely symbolic significance. The timing of ceremonies corresponded to stellar configurations that would optimize cosmic electromagnetic radiation, seasonal changes that affected underground water levels, and lunar cycles that influence Earth's electromagnetic field. Priests calculated these cycles using mathematical knowledge that exceeded what purely religious purposes would require, suggesting they were timing technological operations according to natural phenomena that affected system performance. The decline of ancient Egyptian civilization coincides with the gradual abandonment of temple maintenance activities and the loss of priestly knowledge. As political instability weakened centralized authority, the specialized training required to operate complex systems would have been lost. Later dynasties might have continued religious ceremonies without understanding their original technological purposes, gradually transforming practical procedures into empty ritual. The gods died not because people stopped believing in them, but because people forgot how to maintain the systems the gods represented. Ancient texts describe catastrophic events that occurred when priests failed to perform their duties correctly. Floods, earthquakes, and darkness that fell across the land when the gods turned their faces away. These accounts might preserve memories of technological disasters that resulted from improper system maintenance. If Egyptian civilization depended on energy systems that required constant attention, the collapse of priestly knowledge would have led to cascading failures that destroyed the technological infrastructure of ancient Egypt. As evening approaches and the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, the monuments of Giza stand as testimony to a civilization that achieved technological sophistication disguised as religious devotion. The priests who once maintained these systems possessed scientific knowledge they were only beginning to rediscover. But they encoded that knowledge in religious language that could survive the collapse of the civilization that created it. Perhaps the gods of ancient Egypt were never supernatural beings at all, but symbolic representations of the advanced technology that their civilization created, worshipped, and ultimately lost. As night settles over the Giza Plateau and the desert temperature drops toward the cool that will persist until dawn, the monuments stand as silent witnesses to catastrophic changes that swept across Earth approximately 10,700 years ago. Geological and climatic upheavals so severe they could have erased entire civilizations and reduced technological achievements to mythological memories preserved only in stone and legend. The end of the last ice age brought rapid changes that transformed Earth's geography, climate, and ecology within centuries rather than millennia. The Younger Dryas period, lasting from approximately 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, saw global temperatures plummet suddenly, then rise equally rapidly as massive ice sheets collapsed and ocean currents shifted. Sea levels rose by more than 400 feet, drowning coastal civilizations and transforming river valleys that had supported large populations. The Sahara, previously green and capable of sustaining advanced cultures, began its transformation into the desert we know today. Geological evidence reveals that these changes occurred with catastrophic suddenness. Ice core data from Greenland shows that temperatures could shift by more than 15 degrees Fahrenheit within decades. Ocean sediment cores document massive flooding events that would have devastated any civilization, dependent on coastal or river valley locations. The Great Lakes of North America formed during this period as glacial ice dams collapsed, releasing volumes of water that carved new landscapes within years rather than geological ages. If an advanced civilization flourished during the climatic optimum that preceded the Younger Dryas, when the Sahara was green, the Nile Valley supported far larger populations and global climate was more stable than it has been since. Such a civilization would have been particularly vulnerable to these rapid changes. Technologies that depended on specific geographical conditions, precise water levels, or stable climate patterns would have failed as the physical environment that supported them disappeared. Consider how modern civilization would respond to similar catastrophic changes. Our technological infrastructure depends on stable power grids, reliable transportation networks, and predictable environmental conditions. Rapid sea level rise, climate shifts that altered rainfall patterns, and geological instability that disrupted resource extraction would cascade through our technological systems, potentially causing complete civilizational collapse within decades. An ancient civilization that achieved comparable technological sophistication would have been equally vulnerable to environmental catastrophe. The Great Pyramids design suggests it was built by people who understood these geological risks. The monument's massive construction, precise engineering, and positioning on high ground indicate planning for extreme longevity. If its builders knew their civilization faced environmental threats, they might have designed the pyramid as a repository of knowledge. Monuments sturdy enough to survive catastrophic changes and precise enough to preserve mathematical, astronomical, and technological information for future civilizations capable of interpreting its architectural language. Ancient texts from multiple cultures preserve memories of catastrophic floods, rapid climate changes, and the destruction of advanced civilizations. Hindu scriptures describe cycles of destruction and renewal that correspond to geological timescales. Sumerian texts reference the Ainana divine beings who possessed advanced knowledge and departed when great changes transformed the world. Egyptian inscriptions speak of Zep-Tepi, the first time when gods ruled directly and possessed powers that later humans could only approximate through technology and ritual. The distribution of megalithic monuments worldwide suggests coordinated construction projects that were suddenly abandoned. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey show evidence of deliberate burial rather than gradual abandonment, as though their builders chose to preserve them for future discovery rather than allow them to deteriorate naturally. This pattern of intentional preservation appears at archaeological sites throughout the world, suggesting a coordinated response to impending catastrophe by people who understood the value of what they were about to lose. The technological knowledge required to build the Great Pyramid could not have developed overnight. Such sophisticated understanding of mathematics, engineering, acoustics, and electromagnetic phenomena would require centuries or millennia of accumulated knowledge and experimentation. If this knowledge was lost suddenly rather than gradually, later civilizations would retain only fragments of mathematical concepts without understanding of their applications, construction techniques without knowledge of their purposes, and mythological accounts of technologies they could no longer comprehend. Egyptian civilization itself shows evidence of having inherited rather than developed its most sophisticated achievements. The earliest dynastic monuments exhibit technological capabilities that later dynasties could never match. The Great Pyramid represents not the culmination of Egyptian architectural development, but its beginning, as though the knowledge for its construction existed before pharaonic civilization and was applied by rulers who inherited technologies they did not fully understand. The gradual loss of pyramid construction capabilities throughout Egyptian history supports this interpretation. Later pyramids show declining technical sophistication, suggesting that essential knowledge was being lost over generations. By the time of the New Kingdom, pyramid building had ceased entirely, replaced by rock-cut tombs that required far less sophisticated engineering knowledge. The civilization that could build the Great Pyramid had forgotten how to replicate its achievement within a few centuries of its construction. Modern discovery of pyramid functions and capabilities might represent rediscovery rather than new understanding. Tesla's investigations of wireless power transmission, recent acoustic analysis of pyramid chambers, and electromagnetic surveys of the Giza complex reveal phenomena that ancient builders clearly understood and incorporated into their designs. We are not discovering new science, but recovering knowledge that was once common understanding among people whose civilization we have greatly underestimated. The survival of mathematical and astronomical knowledge in pyramid construction suggests intentional preservation efforts by people who knew their civilization faced extinction. By encoding sophisticated information in monuments designed to survive catastrophic change, they created time capsules that could transmit essential knowledge across the dark ages that followed their disappearance. The Great Pyramid functions not just as a monument to their achievements, but as a library written in stone, waiting for future civilizations to develop sufficient understanding to read its architectural text. As the desert night deepens and the constellations wheel overhead in patterns that have remained constant since before the catastrophes that ended the ancient world, the pyramid stands as testament to human resilience and foresight. Its builders may have known their time was ending, but they created monuments that could preserve their knowledge for rediscovery by descendants who would eventually develop this capability to understand what their ancestors had achieved and lost. As the deep night hours pass over Giza and the temperature reaches its coolest point before the cycle begins anew with dawn, archaeological evidence suggests a possibility that radically reframes our understanding of pyramid construction. The Fourth Dynasty pharaohs may not have built these monuments at all, but rather discovered and repurposed far more ancient structures for their own burial purposes, transforming sophisticated technological devices into conventional tombs through modifications that obscured their original functions. This reuse theory finds support in the puzzling discontinuities that characterize pyramid construction throughout Egyptian history. The Great Pyramid appears suddenly in the archaeological record as a fully realized technological achievement, with no developmental sequence of increasingly sophisticated prototypes. Earlier attempts at pyramid building at Medum and Dashur show clear evidence of experimental trial and error, as though builders were struggling to understand and replicate techniques they had not invented themselves. The internal architecture of the Great Pyramid reveals evidence of multiple construction phases that suggest different purposes over time. The original ascending passage system, with its precise angles and sophisticated corbelled gallery, demonstrates engineering capabilities that exceed anything found in later Egyptian construction. Modifications to this system, including the rough-hewn passages that connect the original chambers to the exterior, show cruder workmanship consistent with 4th Dynasty capabilities, and appear to have been added to convert sophisticated spaces into conventional burial arrangements. Consider the empty sarcophagus in the king's chamber, which shows no evidence of ever having contained a mummy or burial goods. This granite container exhibits precision manufacturing that requires advanced tools and techniques, but its placement within the chamber appears almost afterthought, positioned without regard for the chamber as acoustic properties or mathematical proportions. The sarcophagus might have been added by pharaonic architects who needed to create the appearance of a burial chamber within a space designed for entirely different purposes. The absence of hieroglyphic inscriptions throughout the Great Pyramid's interior contrasts sharply with every other significant Egyptian burial monument. Even the earliest mastaba tombs contain religious texts and identifying inscriptions that mark them clearly as mortuary structures. The Great Pyramid's chambers remain bare of such decoration, as though they were never intended for burial purposes. Later pyramids contain extensive hieroglyphic programs that suggest pharaonic architects learned to impose religious iconography on structures they had appropriated for burial use. Archaeological evidence from around the pyramid complex suggests that 4th Dynasty activity focused on modification rather than original construction. The causeway connecting the Great Pyramid to its valley temple shows construction techniques that differ markedly from the pyramid itself, suggesting it was added to connect an existing monument to new pharaonic infrastructure. The smaller Queen's pyramids exhibit workmanship consistent with 4th Dynasty capabilities and appear to have been constructed to complement an existing major monument rather than as part of an original unified design. The precision of pyramid construction exceeds 4th Dynasty technological capabilities in ways that become more apparent as archaeological techniques improve. Laser measurement reveals tolerances in stone cutting and placement that require tools and methods unknown to pharaonic Egypt. The acoustic properties of pyramid chambers demonstrate understanding of sound engineering that would not be formally developed until modern times. The electromagnetic characteristics of pyramid materials suggest knowledge of phenomena that were unscientifically recognized until the 19th century. Ancient Egyptian texts support the reuse interpretation through references to the monuments of the ancestors and pharaonic claims to be restoring the work of the gods. Royal inscriptions frequently describe rulers discovering ancient structures and adapting them for contemporary use. The Turin King List, which records Egyptian dynasties, begins not with human pharaohs, but with divine rulers who reigned for thousands of years, possibly preserving memories of the original builders whose monuments later pharaohs appropriated. The gradual decline in pyramid construction capabilities throughout Egyptian history suggests that pharaonic architects were working with inherited knowledge they didn't fully understand. Each generation of builders demonstrated less sophisticated techniques than their predecessors, as though essential information was being lost over time. By the Middle Kingdom, pyramid construction had devolved to rubble core structures faced with limestone veneer adequate for burial purposes, but technologically primitive compared to the solid masonry construction of the Giza monuments. Comparative analysis of pyramid construction worldwide reveals similar patterns of sophisticated original construction, followed by cruder modifications and declining capabilities. Megalithic sites throughout the world show evidence of having been discovered and reused by later cultures that lacked the technological knowledge of their original builders. This global pattern suggests that the reuse of ancient monuments was common practice among civilizations that inherited technologies they could not replicate. The transformation of advanced technological sites into religious and ceremonial centers appears to be a recurring historical pattern. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was deliberately buried after centuries of use, suggesting it was preserved by people who knew its original function had been lost. Stonehenge shows evidence of multiple construction phases spanning millennia, with later builders adding features that suggest they were attempting to restore functionality they no longer understood. The Great Pyramid might represent the most successful example of ancient monument reuse transformed so completely that its original function remained hidden for millennia. Modern attempts to understand pyramid construction focus primarily on the techniques available to 4th Dynasty Egyptians, but this approach assumes that pharaonic builders were responsible for original construction rather than modification of existing structures. If the reuse theory is correct, understanding pyramid construction requires investigating technologies that predate pharaonic Egypt by thousands of years and might have been far more sophisticated than anything conventional archaeology attributes to ancient civilizations. The evidence for monument reuse becomes more compelling as scientific analysis reveals the true sophistication of pyramid construction. Every new discovery, acoustic resonance properties, electromagnetic phenomena, mathematical relationships encoded in architectural proportions, suggests capabilities that exceed not just 4th Dynasty technology, but anything achieved by conventional construction methods. The Great Pyramid might be humanity's most successful example of reverse engineering, monument so thoroughly repurposed that its original function remained hidden until modern science developed sufficient sophistication to recognize what ancient builders had achieved. As the night reaches its deepest hour and the desert holds its breath in the profound silence that precedes dawn, the Great Pyramid stands as testament to layers of human achievement spanning millennia. Whether originally built as tomb, temple, or power plant, it preserves knowledge and capabilities that challenge our understanding of technological development and suggest that human civilization has achieved heights of sophistication far earlier than we have dared to imagine. As the eastern horizon begins to show the first pale hints of approaching dawn, and the desert prepares for another day of scorching heat and profound mystery, the legends and mythologies of civilizations worldwide preserve remarkably consistent accounts of technological achievements that mirror the theoretical capabilities of pyramid power plants, stories of divine light, wireless energy transmission, and monuments that bridged earth and heaven through powers that seemed supernatural to peoples who had forgotten the science behind them. The Sanskrit epics of ancient India contain detailed descriptions of vimanas, flying vehicles powered by mercury engines that could travel between cities connected by pillars of fire reaching to heaven. The Ramayana describes aerial battles fought with weapons that blazed like small suns and cities illuminated by artificial suns that never dimmed. The Mahabharata speaks of divine astras, weapons that could devastate entire armies and produce effects indistinguishable from nuclear warfare. These texts contain technical details that correspond to genuine scientific principles, suggesting they preserve memories of actual technologies rather than pure fantasy. Mesopotamian texts describe the Anunnaki beings who possessed knowledge of forces that could raise stones to the sky and capture lightning from clear heavens. Sumerian king lists record rulers who lived for thousands of years and possessed powers that enabled them to construct monuments of extraordinary precision. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes the hero's journey to obtain the fire of the gods from a distant mountain where divine beings maintained eternal flames that powered their technological civilization. Celtic mythology preserves accounts of the Tuatha De Danann divine race that possessed treasures of light capable of illuminating entire kingdoms and weapons that commanded thunder and lightning. Irish legends describe stone circles and megalithic monuments as doorways through which divine fire could travel instantaneously across great distances. The mythology surrounding Newgrange and other passage tombs speaks of structures that could capture the sun's power and distribute it throughout the land through underground channels. Norse mythology describes Asgard as a realm connected to the human world by Bifrost, a rainbow bridge that appears to be a description of energy transmission through light frequencies. The gods possessed weapons that commanded lightning and hammers that could shatter mountains while returning automatically to their wielders' hands. Valhalla was said to be illuminated by spears that blazed with inner light, requiring no fire to maintain their radiance throughout eternal feast halls. Egyptian mythology, examined from a technological rather than religious perspective, contains the most detailed descriptions of energy generation and transmission systems. The Eye of Ra, that could illuminate temples and strike down enemies, sounds like a description of focused electromagnetic energy. Bendon Stone, that captured divine fire and served as the source of all creation, corresponds remarkably to theoretical descriptions of pyramid capstones functioning as terminals in wireless power transmission systems. Greek legends preserve accounts of the Golden Age when mortals lived alongside gods who possessed technologies that seemed supernatural. Prometheus stealing fire from heaven might preserve memories of humans learning to harness electrical energy. The myth of Icarus flying too close to the sun could describe accidents involving early electrical aircraft. The oracle at Delphi, where priestesses entered trance states and delivered prophecies while sitting above fissures in the earth, might describe the effects of electromagnetic phenomena on human consciousness. Mayan codices describe Kukulkan's serpent of light that connected pyramid temples throughout their civilization. This feathered serpent was said to carry messages and power between distant cities, traveling through the sky faster than any bird. Mayan pyramids exhibit acoustic properties that allow whispers spoken at one pyramid to be heard clearly at temples miles away, suggesting that ancient Mesoamerican engineers understood principles of acoustic transmission that complemented electromagnetic power distribution. Native American traditions speak of star people who taught humans to build monuments aligned with celestial forces. These teachings included knowledge of Earth as sacred spots, where natural energy could be captured and used to power technologies that connected tribal communities across vast distances. Medicine wheels and other stone structures throughout North America exhibit astronomical alignments and electromagnetic properties that suggest their builders understood the relationship between celestial mechanics and terrestrial energy phenomena. Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories describe the rainbow serpent, creating pathways of power that connected sacred sites across the continent. These songlines or dreaming tracks correspond to geological features that exhibit unusual electromagnetic properties. Aboriginal traditions maintain that proper ceremonies performed at these sites can awaken the land, sleeping power, and connect practitioners with forces that transcend normal human capabilities. The consistency of these global traditions suggests they preserve memories of actual technological capabilities rather than independently developed mythological concepts. The probability that cultures separated by continents and centuries would independently develop identical descriptions of wireless power transmission, electromagnetic weapons, and energy-generating monuments approaches zero. More likely, these myths preserve fragments of knowledge from a global civilization that achieved technological sophistication rivaling or exceeding our own. The global distribution of megalithic monuments that exhibit similar construction techniques, astronomical alignments, and electromagnetic properties supports the interpretation that these legends describe real technologies. From Stonehenge to Machu Picchu, from Easter Island to Göbekli Tepe, ancient builders achieved precision and incorporated scientific knowledge that suggests coordination by a civilization with global reach and advanced technological capabilities. The catastrophic end of this hypothetical technological civilization would explain why its achievements survive only in mythological form. Rapid climate change, geological instability, and social collapse would destroy the infrastructure necessary to maintain advanced technologies. while allowing survivors to preserve memories of lost capabilities in the form of religious legends and cultural traditions. As dawn breaks over the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramid's shadow begins its daily dance across the desert floor, these global legends take on new significance. Rather than primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena, they might represent humanity's preserved memory of technological achievements that we're only now beginning to rediscover. The gods of ancient mythology might have been not supernatural beings, but the scientists and engineers of a lost civilization, whose accomplishments we are struggling to match with our modern technology. The monuments stand as physical evidence that supports what the legends proclaim. Human civilization has achieved heights of technological sophistication far earlier than conventional history acknowledges, and the knowledge embedded in ancient stones might be our inheritance from ancestors, whose capabilities exceeded our own in ways we are only beginning to understand. As the morning sun climbs higher over the Giza Plateau and begins the daily process of heating stone that will reach temperatures capable of producing thermal expansion, measurable in millimeters, contemporary engineers and scientists bring sophisticated analytical tools to bear on pyramid mysteries that have puzzled researchers for centuries, and their findings reveal phenomena that challenge conventional assumptions about both ancient capabilities and the monument's original purposes. Dr. Christopher Dunn, a precision machinist and engineer with decades of experience in aerospace manufacturing, has conducted detailed analysis of the Great Pyramid's internal chambers using instruments capable of measuring tolerances to fractions of millimeters. His investigations reveal construction precision that exceeds modern manufacturing standards in several critical areas. The granite surfaces in the King's Chamber exhibit flatness tolerances of 5 inches across surfaces, measuring several feet precision that requires machine tools rather than hand-worked construction techniques. Acoustic engineer Tom Danley has performed extensive sound analysis within pyramid chambers, discovering resonance properties that suggest sophisticated understanding of architectural acoustics. The King's Chamber resonates at 110 Hz with harmonic frequencies that create standing wave patterns throughout the space. When Danley introduced controlled sound sources into the chamber system, he documented acoustic phenomena that suggest the pyramid was designed to amplify and focus specific frequencies with precision that rivals modern concert hall acoustics. Electrical engineer Gary Zeitlin has investigated the electromagnetic properties of pyramid construction materials, finding that the combination of limestone and granite creates natural electrical effects that could be amplified through proper engineering. His analysis suggests that the pyramid's material composition and geometric proportions could generate measurable electrical current if subjected to the right environmental conditions: flowing water, atmospheric electrical activity, or cosmic electromagnetic radiation. Structural engineer Peter James has analyzed the pyramid's internal architecture using computer modeling that accounts for the enormous stresses created by millions of tons of stone blocks. His calculations reveal that the monument's internal chamber system incorporates engineering principles that were informally recognized until the development of modern structural analysis. The corbelled construction of the Grand Gallery distributes weight loads through techniques that prevent catastrophic failure under conditions that would collapse conventional construction. Dr. Robert Schock, a geologist from Boston University, has conducted extensive analysis of weathering patterns on the Sphinx and Pyramid complex, finding evidence that challenges conventional timelines for construction. His geological investigations reveal erosion patterns that suggest exposure to rainfall and flooding on scales unknown in Egypt during historical times. These findings support theories that the monuments are far older than conventional archaeology acknowledges. Materials scientist Dr. Deepak Basu has analyzed the chemical composition of pyramid mortar, discovering compounds that exhibit unusual properties under specific conditions. The mortar contains organic and inorganic materials that could function as components in primitive but effective electrical circuits. When subjected to moisture and pressure, These materials generate weak but measurable electrical current through electrochemical processes that ancient builders appear to have understood and utilized. Electromagnetic engineer Dr. John Burke has conducted surveys of the Giza complex using sensitive magnetometers and electromagnetic field detection equipment. His measurements reveal anomalies in Earth's natural electromagnetic field around the pyramids that suggest the monuments interact with terrestrial electromagnetic phenomena in ways that affect the local geophysical environment. These interactions could enhance natural electrical generation processes occurring within the pyramid structure. Computer modeling by architectural engineers at several universities has attempted to simulate pyramid construction using techniques available to 4th Dynasty Egyptians. These models consistently fail to account for the precision achieved in actual construction, suggesting that conventional explanations for pyramid building are inadequate. The computer simulations reveal that achieving documented construction tolerances would require tools, techniques, and organizational capabilities that exceed anything attributed to ancient Egypt. Acoustic physicist Dr. Robert Vaughter has investigated the relationship between pyramid chamber dimensions and acoustic resonance, finding mathematical relationships that suggest intentional acoustic design. The chamber's proportions create resonance frequencies that correspond to natural phenomena: Earth's electromagnetic field oscillations, atmospheric pressure variations, and cosmic radiation cycles. These correspondences appear too precise to be coincidental and suggest that pyramid architects understood the relationship between sound, electromagnetic phenomena, and human consciousness. Hydroelectric engineer David Childress has analyzed the theoretical power generation capabilities of the pyramid's hypothetical water systems, calculating that properly designed hydraulic systems could generate substantial electrical current using the water flow rates available from ancient Nile channels. His analysis suggests that ancient engineers with sophisticated understanding of hydroelectric principles could have designed the pyramid as a power generation facility capable of supplying electrical needs for a significant population. Modern attempts to replicate pyramid construction techniques using materials and methods available to ancient Egyptians have consistently failed to achieve documented precision levels. Experimental archaeology projects have successfully demonstrated that ancient builders could quarry, transport, and position massive stone blocks, but cannot account for the mathematical precision, acoustic properties, and electromagnetic characteristics that characterize actual pyramid construction. The integration of multiple engineering disciplines in pyramid analysis reveals phenomena that no single scientific specialty can fully explain. The monuments exhibit acoustic properties that affect electromagnetic phenomena, electromagnetic characteristics that influence structural behavior, and structural features that optimize acoustic performance. This interdisciplinary complexity suggests that pyramid architects possessed integrated scientific knowledge that modern specialists are only beginning to achieve through collaborative research. Recent developments in quantum physics and electromagnetic field theory provide new frameworks for understanding pyramid phenomena that seemed impossible when analyzed using classical physics alone. Quantum field effects, zero-point energy interactions, and electromagnetic resonance phenomena offer potential explanations for pyramid capabilities that seemed supernatural when examined through conventional scientific understanding. As the desert noon approaches its peak intensity and the pyramid stones begin their daily expansion cycle that demonstrates the thermal precision ancient builders achieved in their construction, modern engineering analysis reveals monuments that challenge our understanding of technological development and suggest that human achievement in specific areas may have peaked far earlier than conventional history acknowledges. The Great Pyramid stands not just as an ancient wonder, but as a technological mystery that continues to exceed our ability to fully comprehend or replicate. As the afternoon heat reaches its crescendo and thermal currents rise from sand that has absorbed the full intensity of the desert, sun imagination bridges the gap between scientific analysis and ancient reality. What would it have been like to stand at Giza when the Great Pyramid hummed with energy, when golden capstones gleamed with captured lightning, and when the monuments that now stand silent once pulsed with power that illuminated temples and cities throughout the ancient world? Picture yourself approaching the Giza complex during its active phase, perhaps 4,500 years ago, when the Nile ran closer to the plateau and the Sahara had not yet completed its transformation into the lifeless desert we know today. The first indication of the pyramid's function would be the sound, deep, thrumming resonance that you would feel in your bones before your ears could identify its source. The granite chambers within the monument would vibrate at 110 hertz, creating infrasound that affected human consciousness and made the entire structure seem alive with supernatural presence. The limestone casing stones, fitted so precisely that knife blades could not penetrate their joints, would gleam with more than reflected sunlight. Piezoelectric effects generated by the enormous pressure of overlying blocks would create subtle electrical charges that danced across the polished surfaces like aurora contained in stone. The Great Pyramid would literally glow with its own light, fulfilling ancient descriptions of the mountain of light that marked the divine presence of Ra himself. At the monument's apex, the golden pyramidion would blaze with intensities that varied throughout the day. At night, as cosmic electromagnetic radiation, atmospheric electrical activity, and the pyramid's internal power generation combined to create a beacon visible for hundreds of miles. This capstone would serve as both collector and transmitter, gathering energy from multiple sources and broadcasting it wirelessly to receiving stations throughout the ancient world. Underground, the complex hydraulic systems would carry Nile water through chambers carved deep into the bedrock, generating electrical current through triboelectric and galvanic effects as mineral-rich. Water flowed through channels lined with different types of stone. The subterranean complex would be alive with the sound of moving water and the hum of electrical generation as the pyramid converted the river as flow into usable power. The surrounding temple complexes would be connected to the pyramid through both underground channels and wireless transmission, receiving power that lit oil-less lamps and operated devices we can only imagine. Priests trained in the maintenance and operation of these systems would perform what we interpret as religious rituals, but which were actually technical procedures essential for keeping the power grid operational and safe. Consider the social and technological implications of a functioning pyramid power plant. Cities throughout Egypt would be connected by wireless energy transmission, receiving power for lighting, heating, and mechanical devices that would make ancient civilization far more technologically sophisticated than we imagine. The priesthood would function as a technical class responsible for maintaining and operating systems that required mathematical, astronomical, and engineering knowledge that rivaled modern capabilities. International commerce would be revolutionized by reliable, unlimited energy sources that could power manufacturing, transportation, and communication systems connecting civilizations across continents. The global network of megalithic monuments would serve as nodes in a planetary energy grid that enabled coordination and cooperation between cultures separated by thousands of miles but united by shared technological capabilities. The acoustic properties of pyramid chambers would enable effects that seemed supernatural to modern observers. Priests positioned at specific points within resonating chambers could experience altered states of consciousness that enhanced their ability to perform complex calculations, make accurate predictions, and communicate with similar facilities at great distances. Through quantum entanglement effects that ancient builders understood intuitively rather than mathematically. The astronomical alignments that seem purely symbolic to modern archaeologists would serve practical functions in a technological interpretation. The pyramid's relationship to stellar positions would optimize its collection of cosmic electromagnetic radiation, while its alignments with Earth's magnetic field would enhance the efficiency of wireless power transmission. Ancient astronomers would be energy engineers whose knowledge of celestial mechanics was essential for maintaining global power systems. The environmental effects of functioning pyramid technology would be dramatic. The electromagnetic fields generated by active monuments would affect local weather patterns, potentially explaining ancient accounts of Egypt as a much greener and more fertile land than the desert we know today. The ionization of atmospheric gases around pyramid complexes could create artificial auroras and electromagnetic phenomena. It would seem genuinely supernatural to observers who didn't understand their technological origin. The decline and eventual cessation of pyramid power generation would have catastrophic effects on any civilization that depended on it. As knowledge of maintenance procedures was lost and essential components failed, the technological infrastructure of ancient Egypt would collapse rapidly. Cities that depended on pyramid power would be abandoned, manufacturing capabilities would disappear, and international connections would be severed as the energy grid that maintained global civilization shut down forever. The transformation of technological sites into religious centers would be a natural response by surviving populations who retained memories of the monument's power but lacked the knowledge to restore their function. Religious ceremonies would preserve fragments of operational procedures, while mythology would encode technical information in symbolic form that could survive the collapse of technological civilization. Modern rediscovery of pyramid power generation could revolutionize human civilization as dramatically as it did in ancient times. Clean, unlimited energy sources could solve environmental problems, enable space exploration, and create abundance that eliminates resource-based conflicts. The knowledge embedded in ancient monuments might represent humanity as inheritance from ancestors whose wisdom could guide us toward a more sustainable and prosperous future. As the afternoon sun begins its descent toward evening, and the pyramid's shadow starts its slow march across the plateau, the possibility emerges that we stand at a threshold similar to the one our ancestors faced when they first discovered how to harness the forces embedded in stone and starlight. The Great Pyramid waits patient as it has always been, ready to share its secrets with descendants finally sophisticated enough to understand what their forebears achieved in an age we have dismissed as primitive, but which may have been humanity's first golden age of technological mastery. As the sun sets behind the Great Pyramid and the first stars begin their nightly emergence, in skies that have remained constant since, ancient builders aligned their monuments with celestial precision. The questions that have driven our investigation resolve not into answers, but into deeper mysteries that connect past achievement with future possibility. Whether the pyramid served as tomb, temple, or power plant, it stands as testimony to human capabilities that transcend the limitations we have imposed upon our understanding of what ancient peoples could accomplish. The evidence we have examined, geological, electromagnetic, acoustic, and architectural, suggests a monument far more sophisticated than conventional archaeology acknowledges. The precision of construction that exceeds modern manufacturing tolerances, the materials selected for their electrical properties, the acoustic characteristics that affect human consciousness, and the mathematical relationships that encode advanced knowledge of Earth's dimensions, all point toward purposes that extend beyond simple burial of pharaonic remains. Yet the pyramid's greatest achievement may not be its potential technological function, but its success as a repository of knowledge that survives the collapse of the civilization that created it. Unlike written records that decay, languages that become extinct, or cultural traditions that fade from memory, the pyramid preserves information in stone. Mathematical constants, astronomical relationships, and engineering principles that remain accessible to any future civilization sophisticated enough to recognize what its builders embedded in architectural form. The global context of megalithic construction reveals patterns that suggest coordinated knowledge rather than independent development. From Stonehenge to Machu Picchu, from Easter Island to Göbekli Tepe, ancient builders achieved similar precision, incorporated comparable astronomical alignments, and demonstrated understanding of forces that conventional history suggests they should not have comprehended. These monuments might represent nodes in a network of knowledge preservation that spans continents and millennia. The catastrophic changes that ended the last ice age provide a framework for understanding how technological civilizations could arise and disappear, leaving only fragments of their achievements embedded in monuments designed to survive geological upheaval and climate change. The Younger Dryas period, with its rapid temperature shifts, rising sea levels, and transformation of fertile regions into deserts, could have destroyed infrastructure and disrupted the social organization necessary to maintain complex technologies. Modern scientific analysis of pyramid phenomena reveals effects that our current understanding of physics can barely explain. Acoustic resonance that affects human consciousness, electromagnetic properties that generate measurable electrical current, and materials combinations that produce piezoelectric effects all suggest that ancient builders possessed knowledge we are only beginning to rediscover. The pyramid functions as a textbook written in stone, waiting for students sophisticated enough to read its architectural language. The religious and mythological traditions that grew around these monuments may preserve technical knowledge in symbolic form. The gods of ancient Egypt, with their power over light, sound, and electromagnetic phenomena, might represent not supernatural beings, but personifications of the scientific principles that their civilization mastered. The elaborate rituals and priestly training that maintained temple complexes could have been technical procedures disguised as religious practice to ensure their survival through periods of political and social instability. Tesla has fascination with pyramid design, and his attempts to recreate wireless power transmission suggest that we may be approaching the technological threshold necessary to understand and potentially reactivate ancient energy systems. Modern developments in quantum physics, electromagnetic field theory, and materials science provide frameworks for comprehending phenomena that seemed impossible when analyzed through classical scientific understanding alone. The implications for contemporary civilization are profound. If ancient builders achieved sustainable energy generation using principles we're struggling to rediscover, their knowledge could guide us toward solutions for environmental challenges that threaten our technological society. The global energy grid represented by megalithic monuments worldwide might serve as a model for international cooperation and resource sharing that transcends the territorial limitations that constrain modern development. The preservation of pyramid knowledge across millennia demonstrates human capability to create monuments that transcend the lifespans of the civilizations that build them. As we face environmental and social challenges that could disrupt our own technological infrastructure, the pyramid provides a model for encoding essential knowledge in forms that could survive catastrophic change and guide future civilizations toward rediscovering capabilities we take for granted. The mystery of pyramid construction continues to deepen rather than resolve as analytical techniques improve and reveal phenomena that challenge our assumptions about technological development. Each new discovery, acoustic properties, electromagnetic effects, mathematical relationships, suggests capabilities that exceed not just ancient Egyptian technology, but anything achieved through conventional construction methods. The monument stands as proof that human achievement has peaked far earlier than we have dared to imagine. The empty chambers that once puzzled archaeologists might represent the monument's greatest success. Rather than containing the preserved remains of a single pharaoh, they preserve knowledge that could benefit all humanity. The king's chamber, with its acoustic properties that affect consciousness, might have been designed as a space for enhanced meditation, learning, or communication. The queen's chamber, with its mysterious shafts and electromagnetic anomalies, could have served functions we can only begin to imagine. As the desert night deepens and the constellation Orion rises toward its zenith, the same stellar configuration that guided pyramid alignment over 4,000 years ago, the Great Pyramid continues its eternal function as a beacon of human possibility. Whether its builders intended to create a tomb, a temple, or a power plant, they succeeded in constructing a monument that challenges every generation to expand its understanding of what human beings can accomplish when they combine knowledge, determination, and vision. The stones themselves may be the most honest witnesses to ancient achievement. Unlike human accounts that can be distorted by translation or interpretation, the pyramids' mathematical relationships, acoustic properties, and electromagnetic characteristics provide objective evidence of capabilities that transcend conventional historical limitations. The monument speaks directly to anyone with sufficient knowledge to understand its architectural language, preserving information that could revolutionize our approach to energy generation, consciousness exploration, and global cooperation. The Great Pyramid stands not just as a relic of the past, but as a guide toward future possibilities. Its builders may have possessed knowledge that could solve problems we consider intractable, achieved sustainability we desperately need, and demonstrated cooperation that transcends the divisions that limit contemporary civilization. The monument waits, patient as it has always been, ready to share its secrets with descendants finally sophisticated enough to understand what their ancestors achieved and wise enough to build upon that foundation. In the profound silence of the desert night, under stars that have watched over human civilization since its earliest stirrings, the pyramid keeps its vigil, as it has for over 4 millennia. Its chambers remain ready to resonate with sounds that could unlock consciousness, its materials prepared to generate energy that could power civilization, and its proportions encoded with knowledge that could guide humanity toward achievements that surpass even the wonders of the ancient world. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what the pyramid was, but what it could become if we possessed the wisdom to activate capabilities that its builders embedded in stone so precisely that they continue to function after 45 centuries of waiting. The monument stands complete, lacking only the understanding necessary to read the instruction manual written in its architectural proportions and the courage to apply knowledge that could transform our world as dramatically as it once transformed theirs. If you've journeyed with us through these ancient mysteries and found yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about human capability and achievement, consider sharing this exploration with others who hunger for truth beyond conventional boundaries. The pyramids have waited over 4,000 years for us to understand their message. Perhaps it's time we finally listen to what the stones have been trying to tell us. Subscribe to continue exploring the hidden technologies and lost wisdom that shaped our world.